All right, ladies and gentlemen, you might have just saw me a little while ago speaking with renowned deathmatch wrestler Mr. Obey himself, but we are back for another round to recap all the latest happenings here in the world of sports. And to do that here with us to give us all the things related to AEW, WWE, CM Punk, Randy Orton, injury news, arrest, who knows what else in between, even TV deals. He is the host of the Hockey Fan Chat. He also has dabbled a little bit in that world of wrestling, training for it. Mr. Randy Dillon, who's wearing a different hockey jersey there today, and I was curious what that jersey was and how you doing there.
I'm doing good, Tom, at the Carolina Hurricane jersey. I'll mention them near the end, but excited to talk about wrestling. What a week it's been this week, and I think the big news, the promo on Monday, the confrontation we saw.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Seth and CM Punk. I mean, obviously, maybe people thought Punk was going to NXT. I mean, we saw that whole moment with Cora Jade. We did that dance with SmackDown last week. So, I mean, what were your impressions there when it came to Mr. Punk and Mr. Rollins after all the things they've talked about over the years?
The seeds are planted. This is going to be a fun, exciting program to watch to the build of WrestleMania. Now, is it going to be for the title or is it going to be a one-on-one match? I'm assuming it's going to be the title. I got to think CM Punk is going to win the Royal Rumble come January. But
You think he's going to win the Rumble for sure? You think he's going to win it?
I think it's your best option. A lot of people are saying Cody's going to win back-to-back, but the only thing I worry about with that is the fans may turn because we kind of know what's coming. Last year, we didn't think it was going to come as much, but I think fans know this is going to come. I think CM Punk winning is right. It'll be ironic 10 years to that date. That was his last match, and he wins the Rumble. But just to talk about the promo, because I know a lot of people are angry at the internet. A lot of people are saying they kind of stole Hangman's Adam Page promo and what he did with Seth Rollins. The difference between the promo, and I tweeted this, these are two guys, Punk and Rollins, who don't like each other.
I mean, they really, I don't know if it's Brett and Sean level where one guy pulls each other's hair out, but it's definitely, these guys have been pretty vocal toward each other, especially Seth, and certainly last year, I remember we were speaking about this here on a prior Sportzwire Radio show.
Oh, exactly. It's definitely close to Brett and Sean. It's not the level of Matt and Edge. We know that much. That is a different level.
I don't think Becky and AJ are involved in that triangle.
No, not for sure. But it's two guys who don't like each other, but they're willing to go to business and do what's right. This isn't Hangman Adam Page, and no disrespect to Hangman Adam Page, a great competitor. He's worked hard from what he's
been a world champion, sure.
But this is someone who's not throwing a left curve in the final minute of the promo saying, screw you.
Yeah, I think there's no question and that there's no reason why to think that these guys really don't like each other. And I think that this was the way to go. I mean, sure, you could have went CM and Roman, and, there's the history there with Heyman. He was the original Roman. Sure, he held the title for a year, but I really think at the end of the day, in wrestling, the old adage is you make money with the personality issues, that bad blood, that tension. That's where it's all, more or less, that's where you see everything. I think that's where it's all going to come to a head here, whether it's at the Royal Rumble, whether it's at WrestleMania. I think this was the move here.
Oh, absolutely. I think Eric Bischoff, his book said it best. Cash creates controversy, and definitely made controversial move in the day in WCW. But that what makes it cash. Sometimes you gotta do it with.
Listen, Punk himself said, what did Punk himself say? He said that he was here for business. He was basically here to make money. He wasn't here to make friends. He wasn't here to basically apologize and rectify things. He was here specifically to draw money. He was here to bring business, and this is his opportunity to do that. So at the end of the day, this is the move. Sure, Roman and him, again, Heyman. But if you really think about what he said in that first promo when he came back on Raw last month, at the end of the day, it was more about business and more about money, and he draws that with Seth freaking Rollins.
Exactly. I think his promo said, I am here to put the past behind. I'm ready to move forward and be professional. And I think it starts off with Rollins right there.
Absolutely, no question about that. I think that's the way to go here. So then, where does this leave then, Cody Rhodes? You mentioned Cody. I'm going to get to the SmackDown end because a lot of different things are moving in SmackDown. I mean, what do you think this means then for Cody Rhodes?
I really am interested in what's going on with Cody Rhodes because he's in this feud with Nakamura. Obviously, this talk if he wants to finish the story, he's on Raw, Roman on SmackDown. Obvious, the Rumble is coming up, but we know the Bloodline is going to be at the Rumble, and I think Roman probably doesn't want to deal with Cody again. Really in this whole run, I think he's the only person he's faced kind of back to back is Kevin Owens, really, and maybe Jey Uso. He doesn't want to face anyone he's faced before, so I think you're going to see.
Well, we're going to get to that side, obviously, with Roman because obviously he's facing somebody, and that'll be an interesting thing. But I mean, Cody, the way he lost, I mean, I would kind of think though that you would want to see the rematch because he was the guy that maybe was the closest. Leave aside Seth Rollins technically not being beat by Roman Reigns a few years back. But the reality of it is a lot of people felt that Cody really was the guy that really was the one person that people thought could win against Roman Reigns.
I still think he is. I think I said this in our post SummerSlam show.
Yes.
Cody Rhodes is still, I think, the top babyface in all of professional wrestling. Now, LA Knight had that push. He definitely is beloved by the crowd. But the way Cody connects with the crowd, the way the crowd is behind Cody, they want him to hear him. I think this probably goes back to the applause he get. Probably goes back to maybe at that Hogan level when it first came out. Eat your vitamin, pray your prayer, where the fans just adore him.
Yeah, I definitely think that Cody has a connected to a few people. I want to say hello to Mr. Mets Daddy on Twitter because Twitter is now showing us who joins on Twitter. How you doing, Mr. Mets Daddy? I want to say hello to Mr. Andra from the NR Hour Sports Show. Happy Friday to you. Keep up the great work. Thank you for that, Mr. NR Hour Sports Show. I think his shows are on YouTube and Instagram as well. I've seen his content. He interviews a number of different people. He is out in the state of New Jersey. So hello to you and thank you so much. If you're out there, hit that subscribe button to us here on Sportzwire Radio. If you want to get in touch with us for shows coming up past, present, and future at Sportzwire Radio 6579. We're also on sportswireradio.org. If you, Mr. NR Hour, want to put your podcast out there, your content, you can do that here on our internet radio station. I want to also say hello to our newest member of the team, Mr. Frank from the Wrestle Raiders show. He was our lead-in coming in, so thank you, Frank, for joining us here on Sportswire Radio. And I want to come back to CM Punk real quick because his first official match is coming up December the 26th, I believe, against Dirty Dom Mysterio. I believe it's at here in New York, and I was curious what you thought. Is that the right opponent for CM Punk to come back in the WWE ring here for the first time in nearly 10 years and going up against Dirty Dom?
Absolutely at the right opponent. I think Dom has shown he can work with the best. I think they want to. The crowd is behind Punk. Might as well put the most hated heel maybe in professional wrestling, right? Still to this day, who get the biggest reaction to get behind. Dom has shown he can work, and probably for, I think, CM Punk, you go back to 2010 where I think Rey Mysterio and his family came out to cut a promo for his daughter, and CM Punk came out and Dom was still a little kid, and now look at him. It's kind of surreal moment.
Well, Cora Jade, we saw there's pictures on Twitter. She must have been, I don't know, 9 or 10, and they showed a picture with her and him, and then they did the photo after, in the extras. It was on social media on the WWE website. So, I mean, listen, at this point, CM Punk has been around. That some of these talent coming up were probably 8, 9, 10 years old, maybe even younger than that, because he started his WWE career back in, I think, ECW, when it was technically still ECW. So you're talking now like 2006, 2007 almost.
Oh, absolutely. It's close to
15 plus years. Yeah, more than 15 years. So you think about that. And, he's been gone for almost a decade. So obviously we'll see there. And obviously NR thanks us for a shout out. So obviously we got some of the Punk stuff aside. And obviously in the interest of time, we're going to bring the regular Sports Report team on in about 20 to 25 minutes. We'll do an abbreviated show on some football stuff, some baseball stuff. So tune in and you'll get some of your fix on that. But I also want to talk to you about some SmackDown news and notes. After we went off the air, there was news about Charlotte Flair. I think we might have touched upon it, but the news came out just a little while ago. She's actually going to be out once again for 9 months. You want to talk about that for the audience and what you think?
It's a huge blow. Now, definitely, it's a really unfortunate situation you saw last week where she fell. Asuka doesn't have a
Off the
reputation.
moonsault. Yep.
This is a really common move. You look at Seth Rollins' injury back in 2015. These things happen, but 9 months without Charlotte Flair. As much as people do not like criticize Charlotte Flair, she is still the top face in the woman division. It starts off with her, and for her to be gone that long, it's a huge loss. Look what she's done for the likes of Io Sky. Work with Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley recently. Now that this new wave of talent is coming in. It's very going to be interesting who's going to step up. Was going to say Liv Morgan, but unfortunately that might be put on hold at this time. So definitely what's going to happen there. And she's not going to be part of WrestleMania, and everyone was looking forward to that big match between
9
her and
months.
Bianca.
I guess if you do 9 months, so let's war game it. She wouldn't even make it by SummerSlam.
Yep, you're lucky. Earliest.
No, yeah. I mean, 'cause today is December, right? So realistically speaking, I don't think she would make it in time. So you're realistically talking about fall next year because we're now in the middle of December. So that's a huge blow. And you touched upon Liv Morgan, who I guess was still recovering for an injury. I saw her on the red carpet. I guess I don't know if I'd call it a friend with benefit. I don't want to get on the exact terms there with MJF. But I did see that she was arrested for some type of drug possession, and the kind of the mugshot didn't even look like a mugshot. Maybe she was prepared for this. I guess if it was years ago, I remember when RVD got busted for possession of marijuana when he was holding the ECW and then the WWE World Titles years ago. You would have really got punished for that, and certainly RVD did. And I really don't think RVD's career in WWE was ever really the same. He
He
lost
killed
the
it.
title. Yeah, he never really was the same. And they brought him eventually back up a little bit on the card, but he never really threatened as a top guy in WWE after that. Now, I don't think it'll be as severe with Liv Morgan because I do think that people kind of recognize these things. It was still a different world almost 20 years ago when it came to marijuana. I mean, now I think people kind of accept it as some form of just, whatever people are going through. So, I mean, what do you really think, though, happens with Liv Morgan based where I said the comparison, again, of a CM Punk, I mean, a CM Punk of an RVD, and I don't think it's really going to be as drastic as what happened to Jim Duggan, the first person that was caught with possession of marijuana way back 35 years ago. And, his career, I mean, he was good. He was certainly a Hall of Famer. Really never was more than kind of like an undercard guy. RVD, I think, is the more recent comparison because, again, he held 2 world titles. He was a top person, and he never really threatened. So, what do you think really does happen with Liv Morgan now that she's been arrested?
One is going to be how long she's going to be out for, how much longer she's going to have. But I really think, listen, Liv Morgan has always had this special connection with the crowd. She's very popular. People want
She's
to see her.
telegenic. The story there, if you watch the WWE 24 series back during COVID, there was something about her, raised by a single mother. She worked in Hooters and they didn't have much. And she was a real underdog story. No question.
Exactly. So definitely people root for her. But I think there's a spot open now for someone to kind of step up to take that spot for Charlotte Flair. It could have been the likes of a Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, who we haven't seen in a while, Jade Cargill, who we're still waiting for. There is an opportunity here, but it's not going to be as severe the punch of RVD back in 2006, but I still think it has to be a message sent to the locker room saying you can't do that stuff. It's not going to be a firing, though. It's probably
but you know what, Randy, and I know the NR Report's got all his social medias out there. Thank you for following. I'm going to check you out. But I kind of actually disagree on this. When people would say, "Oh, well, me of all people would disagree," because I don't think that she should be severely punished because I think what happened with RVD really was a terrible precedent. And I think the world has changed toward, I'm not saying everybody should do drugs. I'm not saying that, but I don't think she should be if she's ready to come back. Now, if she's out for several months, nobody's going to care about this. If she's out for 3, 4, 5, 6 more months on an injury, this is going to be forgotten. If she's supposed to come back by the Royal Rumble, I don't think she should be punished for this because I just think times have changed. People have understood that people use things for different reasons, mental health, all these different stuff that go out there. So I think it depends. I don't think she should be severely punished. That's my honest opinion on it. I don't think so.
We'll have to wait and see. Unfortunately, I wish we could call up Triple H right now and get his opinion on Shawn Michaels.
Now, I will tell you, if it was like one of our backyard wrestling companies we work with, some of our British wrestling companies, our underground companies, if it was XCW, TBW, ROEW, TBW, everyone else, I could certainly get on the phone with them. But Triple H, unfortunately, I cannot get on the phone with. But I want to say hello to my buddy Ron, who's out here for the second time. He says, "Hey, Tom and Randy, and thank you, Ron, for tuning in." So I want to talk about SmackDown because I want to talk to you about an off-the-news note with AEW and WWE, and I'll explain why I tie them in a second. But Randy Orton is challenging Roman Reigns, and at the end of SmackDown, AJ Styles has finally come back. What do you make of all this situation now where we've got, again, it's LA Knight, Randy Orton, AJ Styles, all kind of back in line here against the bloodline, but what are you expecting here between Randy Orton and Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble?
At the end of SmackDown, I thought we were going to get a fatal four-way at the Rumble the way they were going, but AJ Styles attacking LA Knight definitely killed that. I'll get that into a minute, but listen, Roman needs to build himself up for Mania. Mania's a big show, and Randy Orton, he's a veteran. He really is right now, you can say, the locker room leader. He is back. He's been there forever. JBL said, you want to build a sports industry, you look from a guy from the bottom top is Randy Orton. I think this is what you need. And I'm looking forward to this because, listen, this is a big test for not only Randy Orton, but for Roman. He's been on and off, and people are saying he needs to be on more. I say, listen, his reputation, what he's done, he's a special attraction. But when you're working with the likes of someone like Randy Orton, that's special. You better be on your A game.
He should be on his A game, but I kind of agree, Randy. I think we should see more of Roman at this point. I mean, when it comes to the title situation, I think people have to get invested in it. They have to get invested in seeing what Roman Reigns is. I mean, are we going to do this dance for another year?
I hope not.
No, and I think there has to be an end game with it. Now, Randy is certainly believable. There's history there. The bloodline obviously took him out, and he was out on the shelf for just about, I think, 18 months, give or take. So there is a believability there. But I'm with Ron. What is the situation with AJ Styles and LA Knight?
I think it's a good story of someone pure jealousy where AJ Styles, remember, he was a fan favorite. People were behind him. LA Knight kind of came out of nowhere, rise to the top, and I think it's more jealousy saying, I built my name. Who are you? Like, I built my name outside. You just come here with a catchy phrase and come on top. Not going to happen in a place I had to establish myself in, even though I was well known outside of WWE.
Is this the right person for LA Knight? And I hate to say it this way, but to kind of get a huge victory over, to kind of cement him and solidify him further believable as a top guy. I mean, AJ Styles certainly surefire Hall of Famer, has had an impeccable run in WWE in the past. He was obviously The Undertaker's last opponent. Has certainly one-upped John Cena in a feud. I mean, AJ Styles is definitely, although not recently, but his body of work for a number of years, not only in WWE, but in this sport, solidifies himself as a surefire Hall of Famer. Is this the opponent that maybe further cements LA Knight as that eventual top company guy?
Absolutely. Listen, both these guys are not in their prime. They're both up there in age, but
yeah. Ironically enough, LA Knight is actually, people maybe realize he's actually 40. So this is
exactly, and I think it's a great way because the face AJ Styles, they didn't really know what they were doing. With heel AJ Styles, you have a lot of different angles. You can reunite the OC as well and get them kind of on track. Definitely, I think for LA Knight, if you want to build him up for WrestleMania, this is the guy, and especially if you want to put on a wow performance match, he's the right guy. He put on some great matches against the likes of The Miz earlier this year. A good performance with Roman Reigns. But if you want to come out where people are saying, wow, this guy can actually perform great, AJ Styles, the guy you have to do it against.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think it's a good feud. And I think it's one of those interesting ones here. I want to say hello to Mr. OTM here on Twitter. Because now we're getting Twitter to actually show us who joined. Sometimes you don't get that on Twitter, so I appreciate that. I guess it's a good thing. Ron also wants to say AJ remembered that promo Randy made about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I guess Randy. Yeah. Okay, great stuff there, Ron. And we'll obviously see what happens there. Anything else? Obviously, Becky and Nia on Raw is something I think to keep an eye on to watch. Anything else you might be interested in? Maybe the U.S. title tournament, I think, is one of note. Before I ask you kind of my WWE, AEW intertwined kind of question, I'm going to ask you anything else you're watching. I think Becky and Nia might be the one thing I'm watching, if that's interesting to you or not.
The one thing I'm interested in, really kind of put me on a side, is Gunther. Is he gonna face the Miz again? Are we looking at him facing Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa? Who's his next opponent at this point? It feels like they don't have someone kind of lined up for him.
So
Ready.
you mean to tell me Gunther is our next Roman?
I think in a different way, just because Gunther has gone through everyone, he's made also everyone he's faced look that much better, but I don't know what direction they're going for. Listen, he made the Miz turn back the clock at his performance at Survivor Series. Johnny Gargano seems like he can put on a good performance, but at this point,
I don't think they're believable, Ciampa and Gargano. They haven't done anything that I think would say that's believable. I mean, the Miz, was competitive, but I don't think either that kind of people see that really as competitive, or he could win the match, if that makes sense. I mean, I don't know what the answer is on that with Gunther.
Yeah, they're definitely in a tough spot. I think definitely you're kind of running out of options. Jey Uso might be a one, but I think he's not going to go there till Jimmy. Sami Zayn is going to be interesting because I know he's requested time a few months off, but I think he'll be back in time for Mania. And I think those two could put on a heck of a clash. And Sami Zayn has had that underdog spirit where...
Yeah, I mean, okay, that would be interesting. I think until then, though, he's requested time, I don't know where they go there. Maybe they run it back one more time with Gunther, or just put him in the Rumble and not even have him defend the title at the Royal Rumble. Just have him as a participant. Maybe he's believable there, that could win it. Maybe that would be, have him have another great showing. Maybe he's like the second to last one eliminated, or the last one eliminated. Something like that could be good. Ron says he wasn't thinking. Okay, great. So obviously, I want to talk for the remainder, 9 or 10 minutes, whatever it is, until the rest of the guys come on here, is what is going on with this WWE TV deal? Because we obviously know SmackDown is going to USA. We know NXT is going to the CW. But we've got this situation with Raw where the contract expires before October 1st of next year. And it seems like the company or the network that actually AEW is on might be interested in WWE. And I was wondering, if this happens, what exactly happens now, where AEW and WWE are on the same network, or is AEW going to be sayonara when it comes to their Warner Brothers Discovery deal there? I mean, this is a real interesting dynamic that could totally shake up the wrestling landscape, I think.
It definitely is an interesting move, because I was reading some things online, and Collision was created for the purpose of CM Punk, because TNT, Warner Bros., they really wanted him on the show. There's like this, and they knew, hey, this guy's our rating. CM Punk returning has really engaged those talks, what I've heard. Now, AEW's rating's been up and down. I don't know what...
I think it's about, I think Dynamite's usually, I think recent's about 850,000 the average, about their drawing right now.
I also know with Warner Brothers and TNT Network, you have Wednesday your NHL, you have two younger...
Yeah, Wednesday's a tough, historically Wednesday's kind of a tough night, to put on something, because it's like middle of the week, people are kind of like in between, you're out, it's a very tough, even for sports, like you mentioned the NHL, because the NHL, when they were on NBC Sports, that always had the NHL games. So your competition, certainly when you put them on that spot, was kind of like it's not a dead day in the week, but it's not the greatest of weeks to be on TV, especially if you're into sports.
Exactly. I know USA really hasn't talked. Fox had pretty much said we're out after the SmackDown didn't get re-signed. So Listen, this is really interesting because AEW's contract deal is coming up here as well.
Well,
And I
that's
think
why I thought this
shortly
was
after.
interesting
So
because,
is
can they be on the same network? Does this mean AEW goes sayonara? I mean, this is really like, and obviously it's not a done deal. WWE goes to Warner Brothers. I mean, I guess theoretically they still could stay with USA, but you could also say, well, USA might just be taking SmackDown. Maybe they move SmackDown to Monday. Raw gets moved to a different date. I mean, there's really a lot of moving parts here. I mean, and then on top of that, Endeavor just signed Impact.
yeah, the Endeavor one, that was, I think, caught a lot of people surprised. The streaming rights of Impact there. Everyone's wondering, oh, are we going to see a cross promotion? I don't think that. I think it's just more for the library rights where you can kind of have both. If you are a wrestling fan, you can have both. But it's a very interesting time to figure out what happened because, listen, it's not all AEW. There's a lot of problems going on there. I think and collision numbers are getting really, really hurt at this point.
I think it's a tough. Listen, Saturday night is a tough time. As we're talking with Randy Dillon, host of the Hockey Fan Chat, our Sportzwire Radio Wrestling House. Spend about 5 or 7 more minutes here on Sportswire Radio, but it's a very tough night in the beginning of the TV season because you got college football going on. Then you transition into this time of the year. You've got the NBA. You've got other things go on. People go out to the movies. People go out and do different things. So Saturday night is always historically in prime time, unless you do it like WWE used to years ago at Saturday nights, man. But that was 11 o'clock at night. But that was an attraction. Saturday night is always a very, very tough time to put live content out there just because of what your competition. Again, I mentioned it. College football is a big deal up until now. You've got now the NFL is going to start taking over Saturdays up until the end of January. So you lose that out. And then you've got other people's minds, they're out. They're going to dinner. They're going
here
to the
in
movies.
Canada, you got Hockey Night.
I was about to get to that next. You got TSN. Hockey's big. Saturday nights has always been the NHL night because the NHL has always been a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday league. So I mean, very tough to put on an 8 to 10 slot in a Saturday night. You know what I'm saying?
Oh no, exactly. Then I wonder as well because I know Endeavor was talking about where they're going to move Raw. I think maybe Warner Brother and Time Warner, they might have a spot. I think they're saying, listen, we don't really have anything going on Mondays. This might be a perfect way to get a slot on for Raw on Mondays as well because our schedule is usually not taken up there. So it might be.
Right. I think also the interesting thing is, does WWE put Raw as a streaming service? Let's say, obviously Amazon Prime was mentioned. We heard also Paramount was mentioned, I think, at one point. I mean, so do you go that route or do you go over the air? Do you go cable? I mean, I think that's really where, and I think the words that Nick Khan and Triple H have said that also that Raw is not necessarily have to be Monday. So that would tell me, obviously, SmackDown is coming back to NBC, and you could still, obviously, to USA. So you still have that slot if they wanted it. So it's not as if WWE is losing anything with USA. So they're actually they can use the SmackDown spot on Fox to fill that with Raw if they wanted to do that. That's why this is a really, really complicated situation.
The only thing is, Monday Night Raw is an established name. Like SmackDown has been gone through Thursdays, Fridays, Tuesday, but Raw for 30 plus years has been Monday. For them just to change the name, I think it doesn't roll off the tongue, but I think it kind of destroyed the interest because for so many years Raw has been that prime.
I agree with you, but I also think that the way people view television is such a different.
It's different now. So you said streaming, so I think would W consider maybe a streaming deal if they wanted to keep it on Monday?
I think that's why you could also look at Amazon Prime. Also, Warner Brothers has that ability with HBO Max and those other things there. TNT on demand. You also have Bleacher Report. So they might want to go to that. And I think that Warner Brothers would be interested in WWE also because of the fact the NBA deal is up after next year. And if they lose the NBA, now you've got an ability to peg in that NBA content if you lose the NBA. Now, obviously, the NBA is a further complicated situation because they're talking about 4 to 5 different partners in the overall package when they currently have 2. So there's so many moving parts here when it comes to the situation between WWE and where they go. And, I think that obviously time will tell, and we'll certainly see what happens. We'll definitely cover it next week on the show. We'll probably be around, I think, about the same time, about 10:30, you and I will be on, because I think I'm going to have Neff on from Resurrection Pro Wrestling. So that'll be another spot about 9 o'clock or so. So hang on for that. We'll be back in the same spot. We had Obey on, but you want to check here in the link for our YouTube for past, present, and future shows. And the guys will be coming on here in a few minutes. So obviously, Randy, I'm going to give you the floor. This was obviously a lot more serious talk here when it comes to wrestling. We really much ran the gauntlet here: business, injury, drug arrest. We talked about CM Punk and Seth Rollins, which kind of combines all of that. We've got some beefs here with Roman and Randy, and now so obviously we saw what happened with AJ and LA Knight. But I want to now give you the floor and give you some closing thoughts and anything else you may want to plug, share, or say. And the floor is yours, my friend.
Thanks, Tom. Always a pleasure to be on. Just to end things quickly on our wrestling, the big news in AEW is Kenny Omega now being sidelined for a while. This is a big hit to this company because I said he is probably one of the well-known guys for them outside the X.
He was the man. He arguably was the wrestling world champion during COVID. What do you have, 8 world titles at one point?
And he's kind of like their original guy. You kind of think about Adam Copeland, Jericho, Christian, Saraya, all these. They're all from WWE. He's kind of their only one original, so that really hurts them. So we'll see how that works out. Just quickly switching notes to the NHL. Things are kind of spreading out there. You're looking at teams, what moves they're going to make. One team I'm very interested to see is the Minnesota Wild. They're falling out of the playoff race, and they're teams that need the goalie, the Devils, the Kings.
Yeah, that Metro, with
Marc-Andre Fleury's name is going to be interesting.
That Metro division, you got, you're wearing the Carolina Hurricanes jersey, and there's like 5 teams that are all, I think, playing 600 hockey. I mean, that's a really, really, tough situation there. Like we said last month, usually by Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, who makes the playoffs. But this year, I can't say that. I don't even know if you can say by Christmas you're guaranteed a playoff spot.
Not in the Metro. Maybe in the West, but not definitely in the Metro because Islanders figured out to win a game after blowing another few leads. The Hurricanes are struggling.
Even tonight, the Islanders, again, they lose again in a shootout. I mean, the Islanders, I guess they're picking up points, sure. But
the Calgary Flames last year, I think they lost 15 games in overtime, and they missed the playoffs by 2 points. Imagine they win half.
Hey, listen, that was the Islanders in 2017. They missed the playoffs by a point. I think lost like 14 games in overtime or something like that. These things happen.
Yeah, definitely. And then the Edmonton Oilers, listen, they're at 500. Can they make it back? We'll see. On Hockey Fan Chat, we won't have a new episode till the new year, but definitely we will have one coming up in January. I got an Arizona fan I might talk to because they've been a surprise and definitely
Arizona obviously issue, and I think Arizona looks like they're going to finally get a new building now. Also, it looks
that's a big reason why. And then
your Capitals, it seems like there's an issue there with the building.
Oh the Virginia Capitals, Tom. I don't know how you say that. But.
Well, it's crazy because in baseball, the Orioles have an issue with their lease running out, and there's a lot of talk about them. And then you've got the Capitals with this situation that they could be moving out of D.C. So a lot of moving parts right now. And I think the Coyotes finally getting a building is, good news. They played obviously very well, though they've definitely come back to earth. Edmonton, you mentioned, have won 8 of their last 9 games. Definitely come back. Still got a lot of work to do there to make the playoffs, though. A lot of work to do. But obviously they've got things where they want to. Certainly in the Central, the top 3 have pretty much remained when it comes to Winnipeg, Dallas, and Colorado. Again, Vegas will renew, and obviously the Vancouver Canucks. Obviously have been in the story, I think, of the league, the Cinderella story for sure.
100%.
All right, we can follow Randy on Instagram. We can follow him on Twitter at Randy Dillon, DHILLON. We can check out the Hockey Fan Chat right in that link below on sportswireradio.org. We've also got your logo on the Sportswire Radio, so we've now got, I think, 11 or 12 different podcasts on Sportswire. We've got a couple of new ones, couple of ones without the logo we got to put back on. But obviously, I'm looking forward to that Hockey Fan Chat in the new year. And I'll definitely talk with you next week, maybe about 10:30 or so, same time. We'll have a lot to talk about for sure when it comes to WWE, AEW, and Punk is always a topic here. He's going to be a topic once again.
Thank you, Tom. Take care.
All right, that's Randy Dillon of the Hockey Fan Chat. He is here on Sportswire Radio. We're joined here by one guy in Mr. Justin Gianelli. He is the host of the Baseball Banter. And Justin, how you doing out there, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Obviously, a lot to talk about here. We'll talk some NFL, maybe get a few thoughts on baseball, do a couple of picks. I know a couple guys here are going to be shorthanded, but obviously, I guess we'll get some of your reactions here. And I got Chris Pizzea coming in. I'm going to let him bounce in a second. But, I guess I will talk baseball then. So what is your thoughts here on some of these signings? I mean, Otani, $2 million and $68 million a year deferred. And what's your thoughts here on this MLB offseason?
Well, I mean, I thought the Otani signing would create more of an avalanche of free agent signings, and it really hasn't. It's still kind of pretty slow moving. And this Otani contract is probably the most fascinating you're ever going to see. I mean, with the deferred money and the total valuation of the contract is 10 years for $460 million, because the Dodgers basically have to put $44 million in escrow every year for that deferred money to end up growing to be the number of $68 million that he gets from 2034 to 2043. But I mean, even still though, instead of the Dodgers having to pay $70 million towards the CBT, it's only 46, and that does help. And obviously they signed Glass now today to the 5-year, $135 million deal as part of that trade with the Rays. And listen, obviously the Dodgers are tired of not winning the World Series, and they've decided to go nuclear this offseason. And you know what? I mean, it helps when it seems like Otani
Wasn't there a quirk also in the Otani contract? If I think the changes, he could technically opt out after the season.
Yes.
Did anybody hear about that?
So if the CEO Mark Walters or President of Baseball Operations Andrew Friedman, if either of them lose their roles, like whether Walters sells the team or Friedman gets relieved of his duties as president, he's got the right to opt out immediately after that season ends. So that's a fascinating clause that I've never seen before.
I was listening to it this morning. It was on
really
MLB.
Gives them the power to the organization.
Well, I mean, obviously, I guess we'll find out. And Chris, obviously, good to be with you. I've been listening to the Talking Rivals throughout the week, and we play, obviously, all the content here on sportswireradio.org. So, I mean, the Los Angeles Dodgers certainly have made quite a splash with Otani, and I guess what's your thoughts on it? And where does this leave Yamamoto? We were talking, you and I, last week about this whole situation, and I mean, I guess I have to ask because he's the big fish out there. I mean, what do you think that this means for him and some other free agents underneath that?
Well, I think with Yamamoto, I think it's going to come down to, does he want to play in the West Coast or in the East Coast? If he wants to play with the Dodgers, does he play second fiddle to Otani over in LA? And then in New York, it's either going to be Yankees or the Mets, right? That's what it's going to come down to. I don't think he's going to pick Boston or Toronto over one of the New York teams. I think it's going to be New York or LA in my mind. So I think it's going to come down to what coast he wants to play. And then I think once he signs, I think that's going to open up the floodgates. I think like what Justin said, after Otani signed, I was expecting the big moves to come too. But now I think once that happened, now everybody else is getting,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because somebody asked me this morning, and a guy that actually came on the show way back when I was actually doing these shows on Skype, and he stopped me and said, what does this mean for Blake Snell? And I said, well, I mean, I guess Yamamoto has to sign first because Blake Snell is obviously underneath Yamamoto, right? So I would have to imagine it's Yamamoto, then Blake Snell, then I guess Montgomery and some of these other free agents after that, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think so. I think Yamamoto is going to kind of set that market, and then, everybody else is going to fall into place. And then it's going to be Snell and probably Montgomery. But I mean, I hope, if the Yankees don't get Yamamoto, I hope they don't go to Snell. I think Snell is overrated. I mean,
yeah, we spoke about it last week on the show. He's got the 2 Cy Youngs, but that's the only seasons he's had in his career over 8 wins. And you said that on your platform.
Yeah. That's what I mean. You look at his stats, and he had those 2 good years, and even those 2 years, he didn't even throw over 180 innings in those 2 seasons that he won.
99 walks last year.
Yeah, I'm staying away from Ian Snell.
That
Blake
means
Snell.
he's putting on an average of just about a runner per game on base without even any
I'll take
contact.
my chances and overpay a little bit for Montgomery because I think Montgomery's going to get a lot of money for what he did last year in the playoffs. And I think he's still like a middle of the rotation starter. He's not a 1 or a 2. I think he's more of a 3, but he's going to get good money probably.
And I want to say hello here to our buddy Ron again. Ron says hello, Chris. He also says good win. I'm going to get to the Jets. We're
What's up,
definitely
Big Ron?
get them. I will talk NFL. I definitely want to do in a general case. We'll pick a couple games. But, I was listening to the radio the past couple of days, and I'm curious on where does this leave two things for you guys? Number one, a team like the Toronto Blue Jays that was certainly very in on Ohtani. They were very in on the Korean player. Was it Kuhu Lee that signed with the Giants?
Lee, yep.
San
Francisco.
6 years, right at 100, and I think what's it, 13 million or something like that.
He got more. He got a lot more than I thought he would.
Okay, yeah, and then where does it leave somebody like a Cody Bellinger, who everybody's been talking about, and it seemed like the Cubs were basically forgetful on him. So I'm kind of curious on where does the situation leave with free agents like a Bellinger, who obviously would be, I guess, had a comeback player of the year. He was definitely a bounce back, but still he had two really horrible years after his MVP season.
Yeah.
And where does this leave a team like the Toronto Blue Jays, which was all in on Ohtani, and so far this free agent offseason has done next to nothing. So what do you guys think on both that?
No, I look at the Blue Jays. Actually, I look at every team. They've been kind of quiet, other than the Dodgers and the Yankees, obviously making a big trade for
Reds
Soto,
made a few minor moves. Reds put in,
I think listen, Toronto should be in on Bellinger because they do need a left-handed bat for that lineup.
Agreed.
So
Yep.
I would think they're going to be in on Bellinger, but I also think the Cubs should re-sign him. He obviously likes playing there. He's comfortable. Yep. I don't know what the Cubs are doing. I mean, they spent all that money for the manager, and that guy hasn't done anything. You know what I mean? I still
they don't play, right? They don't
but
hit and run, obviously, on the field, right?
Yeah. So I'm expecting Bellinger, either Chicago or Toronto. I mean, one of those teams got to do something. And I talk to obviously Patrick every week on Talking Rivals, and he's a Red Sox fan. What has Boston done? Right?
Yeah,
Boston,
you guys were talking about that. You talking about Verdugo. You guys were talking about what can the Red Sox do, and then Justin Turner. It seems like the Red Sox are not re-signing him, and I would think that would be a no-brainer after the year he had.
Yeah, I agree. So I don't know what they're doing.
The only team he's linked to, Turner, seems like he's the Mets right now.
Yeah.
Boy, the irony of that. Obviously, Turner was such a Met killer for all these years, and the irony of Justin Turner being a New York Met.
It's also a full circle moment, though, bringing him back to New York, and because he didn't have much major league experience when he was with the Reds and the Orioles, so the Mets were really where he got his first start in the big leagues, and obviously became the player he did it with the Dodgers, and a solid year last year. I think hit over 280.
And 90 RBI, right? Something like
that. 23 homers. I mean, that's a good bat for a DH. And if with the Mauricio injury, the ACL injury, Beatty's probably going to be playing third base every day. But if Beatty struggles, even though he's not good defensively anymore, you could put Turner there, because his bat's always going to play. That bat's always going to hit. As for Bellinger, I want to see him stay in Chicago. Those coaches, I think fixed something in his swing, and
he had 287 with 2 strikes last year. Think about that.
It brought him back to the player he was pre-shoulder injury, and I'm talking about the shoulder injury from Game 7 when he was celebrating with Kike Hernandez, hit the game-winning homer in the LCS. Obviously had the MVP 19, the Rookie of the Year in 17. But after that, just hasn't been the same player, and bounced back nicely last year. I know he said it's because he finally feels healthy, but I also too noticed a different, more shorter.
He talked about. I think I heard something. He talked about making an adjustment to his swing.
It's a more compact swing. He's always had that he stands very tall, very stiff, right? That long swing, it's always an easy swing to exploit, but he's kind of shortened that up a little bit, and it allowed him to, hit more consistently. And I'm I think it'd be best if he stayed in Chicago, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he was good in that ballpark. I think he had a really, really good year there. I think it's a team that's right there. I mean, that's a division, a really, really wide open division.
Yeah,
I mean,
as for the Jays, I mean, they're almost starting to feel like the Giants a little bit here because, I know the Giants end up getting the Korean outfielder Jung Ho Lee, but it feels like the Giants always take a big swing at guys and they whiff, right? And the Jays are starting to kind of feel that way.
Yeah, I wonder what it is, and I'm going to get to a comment from somebody special in a second. And I think Eduardo Perez was talking about the fact, and so was Steve Phillips. Well, in Toronto, maybe it's the Canadian dollar, it's the environment. Then they were talking about San Francisco, and there's an issue with crime there, and maybe players' families see what's going on out there, and maybe they don't want to come and play there, and maybe that people they can't look past it. I mean, I don't know what the combinations are, but yeah, those two markets, you would think with the positivities that they could have, they don't seem to ever be able to land a huge free agent, especially in the Giants' case, because we know Aaron Judge last year that they made a really, really big effort. And Buster Olney was like sure that he could put his hand on the Bible and say he was going to San Francisco. So I would think the Giants, it's a little bit worse than Toronto because Toronto only until recently to me has become back to being a big market again, whereas the Giants, every year I feel like I hear about them trying to get a big free agent and they get these middle of the road guys.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of just what's been the case here. I mean, they obviously had. I mean, they did have Correa done, and the deal was about to be signed, but then the medicals obviously came up, so that obviously slipped through their fingers. Obviously, that ended up slipping through the Mets' fingers too, after the medicals went awry. But the Giants. I mean, the Giants are in a precarious spot here because they're in a tough division, right? You got the Dodgers that are consistently winning 100 games every year. The D-backs just went to the World Series.
I think the Padres.
I still think the Padres will be good despite trading Soto. I think they'll still be good, but I don't. Yeah, I really don't know what.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
let's see what they do with pitching. Right, their pitching is.
Yeah, the pitching's weak because really behind Darvish there's not much.
You're losing Snell also.
You're losing Snell.
You're losing Hader also.
And Hader's big.
Seth Lugo signed with the Royals.
3 years, $45 million.
Yeah, he listen. He earned it. He pitched well.
If Rob Moroska was here, he would have been yelling, "Where we gotta go? Why did the Mets get him? And why didn't we get him?" And
listen, he made his first real opportunity as a starter, and he ran with it. And good for Seth.
A really good year.
I mean, the Padres pitching was good last year. The thing about
Lugo's career, he only had really, as a reliever and a starter, only one bad year, if I'm not mistaken. Only really one bad year in his career. If you look at his career ERA, it's like right around 3.5. He's always been a competent kind of a short man.
When push came to shove, he was a guy I trusted out of the Met bullpen. That's
we spoke a lot about him on prior.
And listen, he was a huge part of the Mets' success and getting to that wild card game in 2016. Because remember,
that was him and Robert Gsellman. Yeah,
Harvey got hurt. DeGrom got hurt.
It
was really Syndergaard and Cologne and a cast of characters, and then Robert Gsellman and Seth Lugo end up stepping up as rookies.
Hey, they were godsends. Those guys
the postseason.
Listen, those guys came up right in the month of August and won some big games for them. And I definitely want to say hello to a couple of people. I want to say hello to my lovely friend out there in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, who hates the New York Mets, Miss Zena. She is so mad I'm talking about the Mets with Justin, but that's too bad because we're on my show here on Sportswire. But she's obviously a Yankees fan. She's really getting mad about me talking about the Mets, but that's okay. But speaking of one of my buddies, who's the #1 contender to the DBW World Championship, Mr. Big Tex himself, who I'm going to be talking about Sunday night in a big way coming up for sure. Is he going to be challenging Mr. Judgment for that title? But I'm kind of confused here. He says, I feel like the Yankees wasted getting Juan Soto. Are you confused about the prospects the Yankees get? Because I think the Yankees had to make the move in getting Juan Soto. Maybe you're confused about the fact that, and I think you were talking about this, and maybe Bobby, Rob, and Donald on their show, because I heard a lot about Soto talk from them this week on our channel, are maybe concerned Soto's here as a rental. Is that maybe the comment? Are you concerned, by the way, before I go to football in a few minutes, Chris, that maybe Soto's a rental player, or what do you think on that?
You know what? I'm not really thinking about it because I don't think he's going to sign until next offseason. And I think the Yankees got somewhat of an edge because they got a whole season to kind of show him, what the Yankees are about and playing for the Yankees, playing in the Bronx and, all that. And, just get him engrossed into the Yankee, um, playing and everything else, the Yankee environment. So I think it's going to help him. But at the end of the day, I mean, listen, if the Mets or the Dodgers or someone else puts a lot of money in front of him, maybe he goes there. So, but all they could do is just try their best. And hopefully this year they could go all in and, everything falls right for them. We don't get the major injuries like we've had the last couple of seasons and things go right. And maybe, they could do something in the playoffs this year. And that'll entice them too. Hey, I won here. It's great. This is so much better than playing in San Diego or Washington. I think he's going to stay in the East Coast, whether it's the Yankees or the Mets, because the Mets are going to go big for him too. So,
but, yeah, I mean, I guess the Mets could. I think the Mets, I still am skeptical what they do this offseason. Maybe they retool enough next season. But I think that the move the Yankees made absolutely was the right one in getting Soto because, Phillips made the point. I think I said this last week on the show. Listen, you're going to have to give up something to get something, but Soto's the kind of guy with his age, you sign him, you got him here for his whole career. I mean, so to me, I think the move absolutely 100% depending, it doesn't even matter who you gave up, should have been to get Soto. No? For you gentlemen? Is that a fair point?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you make that trade 100 times out of 100.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Listen, they want to sign him. I mean, they didn't get him just for the 1 year, but at the end of the day, I mean, they could just put their best offers out there. And if the Mets come in higher or if someone else comes in higher, if he's going to go there, he's going to go there. That's what it comes down to. So,
and anything else on the free agent end that you guys may be looking at before we move on to NFL football talk here for a little while?
Real quick, do you think like with the Blue Jays, why they're kind of swinging and missing on these big free agents? Is it playing in Canada? Like, is that free? Does that bother a player, you think? Saying, listen, I don't want to go play. I don't want to live in Toronto for 10 years. And I have nothing against Toronto. I'm not saying it's bad.
Me either.
You know what I mean? But maybe a player is like, listen, I don't want to go to a different country. I want to play here. Do you think that has something to do with it?
I think it's fascinating because I know the Blue Jays went for it back in 15 and 16. They made those big moves and certainly it paid off. But in terms of like, you look at their history, I mean, it's been really far and few that they landed big name free agents. I guess Clemens obviously would certainly come to mind, maybe a few others that they certainly signed or re-signed that they kept. But I mean, if you look at that franchise, I don't know if it's the Canadian dollar. I don't know if it's the weather there. Living there in the winter is very tough. I mean, it's a good question because I can't really wrap my head around it.
You don't have to live there in the off season.
Yeah, but you're still living there, 8 months?
You're living there. If your family's living there, they're living there.
October.
April, May, June. Yeah. I mean, the weather in Canada doesn't even get better until May. Here in New York, all right, maybe we'll flip a coin and get better in March. But there in Toronto, it's May, and it's like
but the weather also doesn't have much of it doesn't have really an effect on the game itself.
Yeah, but people, if you're from California,
they can close the dome, right?
If you're from California or Texas, maybe you don't want to live there. I don't know. I mean,
I think it's a big move. It's a big move.
I think the Canadian dollar could be something to do with that. The Canadian dollar is lower than the United States dollar. That's always been an issue.
That has probably a lot more to do with it.
I think that's the case. I think again, if you look at their history, Toronto's never really landed big free agents. I don't know if it's the network deal. I don't know if it's the ballpark. I think Phillips made the point, maybe to answer your question, now I'm thinking about it, is Phillips made the point that maybe guys don't want to play 81 games on turf.
That could be too. And
I mean, listen, not many teams left have turf. I mean,
turf is like, that's such a relic thing. I mean, how many?
I mean, listen, and if you're a Blue Jay, you're not just playing 81 games on turf. You got to go to Tampa. Where there's
Tampa, 6 more games, maybe 6 more games
there.
More than half your games are on turf.
Yeah, if you play them, you play the Marlins, I think the Marlins have turf. If I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right because the Marlins.
But I think that's it. I think if I'm not mistaken, I think those are the only 3 teams.
There used to be a bunch of
trying
them.
to think of any
It had
names.
it used to. I would say what a third of the league at one point had.
Well, you had that.
That's
Well, you had that stupid AstroTurf, like the Astrodome had it.
right.
Busch
And I
Stadium
think the
had
Blue
it.
Jays-
The Vet had that.
Olympic Stadium had it.
Pittsburgh,
I
I
think
think even had it.
And you know what?
Pittsburgh
And
had
they
it.
gotta
Three
sign
Cincinnati had
somebody
it. Yeah.
because didn't they just do a major renovations of the Sky Dome too? Didn't they?
Yes, it's a different
Yep.
name now as well. Yep, they did renovations of it.
So they're going to have to sign somebody to attract. I mean, otherwise they're going to have to, sign Guerrero or Bichette to extensions. You got to do something to get, because right now, what are they? Third best team in the division, maybe.
I mean, that core has been
yeah.
and that core has
Right.
been together what now 4 or 5 years, and they've got not a single playoff one under their belt. Sure, they got the 3 playoff appearances, but not a single playoff. And teams
And we
like
talk
the
about them a lot. They
yeah,
go
I mean,
nowhere
a
when they
lot
get to
on
the
thi- on,
playoffs.
Yeah.
on this show since we've been going live. I mean, you think about it again, teams like Toronto, teams like Seattle, that this offseason seem like they're either holding back or not able to make a move, but were teams that were either expected to win or made the playoffs and didn't do anything. And they're kind of now, where do they go from here? In Toronto, I think it's definitely a huge offseason for them. And so far, doesn't look too good for them at the moment. But we are here right now on Sportswire Radio, speaking all things related here to the world of Major League Baseball, the NFL. We're speaking wrestling earlier on the show. We're speaking all number of different things here with a bunch of my buddies here, including the likes of Justin Gianelli, host of the Baseball Banter Show. Mr. Chris Bizet, who does 2 for the price of 1. He is the host of the Liftoff Jets, the Talking Rivals. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio. If you like what you hear from us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you can listen to all of our great content on Sportswire Radio, where you can hear the likes of the Baseball Banter and the Liftoff Jets, the Talking Rivals, our newest show, the Wrestle Raiders, Randy Dillon's Hockey Fan Chat, and the Sit Down Marks, and the Pinstripe Chronicles, the Devil's State of Mind, just a whole list of other shows. Michael Palace's Jet Up Bleeding Green podcast, where he has some really interesting things he says. Some of them I don't know.
Central.
I don't know if some of them are conspiracies. I don't know if some of them are just made up, whatever it might be. But if you want to have a podcast or suggestion, you can check us out on sportswireradio.org. Also, you want to check us out in our past, present, and future shows here on YouTube at Sportswire Radio 6579. I'm going to be on the Talking Rivals December the 26th with Patrick and Chris, and I've got a big announcement for those guys coming up, so stay tuned for that. That'll be next week. So next Tuesday, not this Tuesday, but the following, I'm going to be on their show and a few other podcasts on Sportswire. I'm going to be on, so stay tuned for more details. And I'm also going to be on here a bunch of times. They're coming up this weekend. I'll be here at 10 o'clock this Saturday with the DVG, the broadcaster and ring announcer for our friends over at Dominant Breakout Wrestling. I'll be back here Sunday also at 6 o'clock with the Blaze Ace Christian, and then later on with Corey Graves, also of DBW. So you can stay tuned here and watch those shows here in the links below. Right now, we're having a great time with Justin Gianelli and Chris Bizet. A couple of comments here from a guy that has not been back here in ages, and he is back, Mr. Carlos Chavez. Carlos, good to be with you. Where have you been?
What's
Some
up?
guys, Toronto getting new managers. They keep trying to find pitchers, and Toronto's hitters slump at the worst time. What do you want to say on Carlos Chavez?
He's not wrong.
Yeah, agree.
So Carlos, what's the fix for a team like the Blue Jays? Again, they've had this core, and they haven't been quite able to get over the finish line. And you got to wonder how long that core has.
What about doing something drastic like trading Guerrero or trading Bichette?
And what do you get back in return? Yeah, you can.
Right.
If I were them, I would try to recruit pitching haul, because you know what? Because Jose Barrios is good.
Yeah.
Like,
it's okay.
Carlos wants him to dump and start new. That's what he wants.
Honestly, I don't think that's the worst idea in the world,
Right.
because I just don't see an avenue where they can dominate the American League. There's really just not that avenue for them.
And Guerrero is never, like, he hasn't taken that next step, right? Like a couple of years ago, he got good, and then he kind of like took a step back last year. Bichette,
yeah, I think you were looking a couple of years ago. I don't think it's as drastic as a drop off as Bellinger had, but it's still.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be an elite hitter, and I don't think he's
just
there
been
yet.
a good hitter. Yeah,
I don't think Guerrero's ever going to be anything more than just a very good player. Like he'll put up really good numbers. I don't think he's quite that superstar we thought.
Right.
Could be. No, listen, could be. And Carlos also wants to point out Mattingly on that squad can bring up young players.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
possible.
let's see what they got. I don't know what young players they got coming up, but that's a possibility, right?
I don't think they're going to retool because I think that obviously they're looking to again with the ballpark, the renovations, the money that ownership spending. There's pressure on the GM. I don't think
They're in such a tough spot though, because you look at how competitive the rest of the American League is, right? Obviously, the Yankees making the big splash to get Juan Soto, and obviously the Yankees still have a lot more work to do, right? To me, adding Juan Soto doesn't turn them from an 82-win team to all of a sudden a 95-win team. He doesn't do that. Now, yeah, of course, Judge missed a ton of time last year, but realistically, they weren't playing all that bad when Judge was out. So I could maybe equate another 8 or 9 with a full year of Judge and Soto. I could equate that to maybe 90.
Well, but 90 means you're taking away from, let's say, Baltimore. You're taking away from Toronto, possibly.
I think you're probably more so taking it away from Tampa Bay, and I think Boston will, because Boston was close to 500 too. If not, they were just
Boston was
slightly
500 most of the year.
I think they'll fall more to the lower 70s. Tampa, I'm gonna get crap for saying this because guess what? We'll look up in August, and the Rays are in first place again.
20 games over 500.
Yeah, no, they always do it.
They do.
Always do it.
But I think they take a significant step back, and I think Baltimore takes another step up. So I think, to me, it's going to be Baltimore and the Yankees as the class of the division, and we'll see where Toronto ends up falling.
But what did Toronto win? 90 last year? Like 90-ish? So
they haven't done much. Right now, they haven't done much to get better. They haven't done much to get worse yet.
I think it's going to come down to what the rest of the offseason, ends up doing, for these other teams. The Yankees, if they end up getting Yamamoto, yeah, then that gives them even more wins. And now you're talking about them being the class of the division. But Baltimore.
Forget class of the division. They're probably the class of the American League at that point.
And Carlos wants to add a couple of more things. He says Guerrero loves Toronto. Him on that team handicaps that team. He also points out that the Yankees made themselves a better team hitting, so now they have to find pitchers. But obviously, Yamamoto, we would think, would be there in competition for that.
Well, it also, too, would take the pressure off of Carlos Rodon because that first year was an absolute disaster for Carlos Rodon. I mean, that 6-year contract couldn't have gotten off.
But I feel like if you don't get Yamamoto, where do the Yankees? So I guess then, and we'll go to football in a minute. But if the Yankees don't get Yamamoto, where do they go?
I would think Montgomery's got to be their next option, and then after that, then it's got to be
it's probably the lefty. It's probably that lefty from Japan, Shoto Imanga.
Yeah. He's more middle to back end.
Yeah, obviously doesn't have quite the height.
I think they're going to be in the market.
And one more thing on the Blue Jays, I think the last thing I want to say, I was listening to this on the radio. It might have been 2 days ago, and they were speculating there was something about Christian Yelich and the Toronto Blue Jays. I mean, that'd be interesting, I guess. I mean,
Yelich, I don't like that.
But he's also had injuries. He did have a better year this year. I think it was 19 home runs, 28 stolen bases. So
he's as a leadoff hitter too. He was solid, but I don't know. Does that really push the needle for you for the Blue Jays? I don't know. So I think they're still going to do more than him.
You're in control. I mean, it's not a big free agent signing, but again, he's an MVP. He's still got some years left, but he obviously has a no trade. Would he remove that? Would he want to go to Toronto? Milwaukee's also another team. Where do they go from here? Burns, we've talked about. Will they maybe move him? I think there's some kind of questions there, but they're also still in a winnable division. I mean, really, that division, it's really anybody's guess there.
Both Centrals are really up for grabs when you look at them, right? I mean, who's really stepped up in either division? The Cubs, we're waiting for the Cubs to do something, and they're not doing anything.
Yeah, Minnesota, I don't think anybody was really impressed with Minnesota. Last year, they lost Sonny Gray.
No.
The White Sox still have ways to go. Cleveland desperately needs offense. Kansas City, I don't think anybody's really taking seriously. Detroit.
I don't know. They've spent a lot of money this offseason.
Yes, but are you gonna go from 100 losses to 85 wins? That's the question. couple questions here. I'm not
Yeah.
sure where that pitching is coming from for the Yankees. Venezuela, LOL, Dutch Netherlands. Okay. Yelich needs to stay at the Brewers. Well, it's up to Milwaukee again. It's up to them what they want to do. Do they want to, make moves on their team and see what they can get back? That's
Right.
really the question here. But obviously,
See, the thing with Yelich is you're probably going to have to attach him with Corbin Burns.
well, I mean, but
If
and that would be
the Brewers
if
end up
you're
trading
gonna do it.
Corbin Burns, a team might not want to part with some of their top prospects, and that might require them to attach in the contract of Yelich.
Well, I
That
mean,
contract's going to be a burden on the Brewers.
right. And I think if you're the Brewers,
Yeah,
maybe you
it's not a
trade these
great one.
guys. Maybe you trade them now. The value's high. Yelich. Maybe this is his best you're going to get from him as a bounce back year. Again, 19 home runs, 76 RBIs. He
Yeah.
walked on base. He was good on base this year. His on base was up. I mean, this was probably his best year in a long time. We're talking probably since 2019, right? Where he was runner up in 18. He was the MVP. 19,
Right.
he would have won it, but he got hurt, I think, right at the end of the season. So, you look at it. I mean, this is his best it might get. And before I go to
And he still
football,
has 5 years left on his deal.
well, a team
Yelich.
like Toronto, maybe they would want to take it. Maybe they would
And he's
want
what,
to take it.
31, 32? I don't know.
31. Yeah, I
Cool.
mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but I mean, if you're Milwaukee, if you figure, you know what, maybe I can retool quick, get a whole bunch of prospects, build them up, maybe that's the move.
And the one spot where they do have good prospects is the outfield, right? They got the kid Weimer from last year.
Yep.
The other kid that came up last year too. What's that? The speedy guy. He was playing center or right.
Uh,
Can't think of his name.
Weimer played the full year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
It was
And then they signed what's his name? Chiriro, whatever his name is.
Was it Garrett Mitchell? I think you were talking about. Was it Garrett Mitchell?
No,
who came up?
not Mitchell. Let me
Center
look for his
field.
name.
He played center field. Mitchell for him. He came up late. I don't know if that-
Frelick. Sal Frelick.
Oh,
no,
right,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, not him. He was the outfielder. Shoot. I had him too on my fantasy team for a bit.
I'm
Not
trying to think.
Mitchell.
You sure? All right, not Mitchell. It was I'm trying to.
Somebody stall while I get the baseball.
Oh,
reference.
Toro, Abraham Toro.
No.
He came up. Well, I mean, look. The point is obviously
Right.
we've got some decisions. We'll certainly see if they wind
Yeah.
up making them. And Carlos says here, Royals keep signing players and hoping. Well, listen, they did win a World
That's
Series
all they could do.
in 2015, but they won a World Series in 2015. And there's a lot of teams that haven't won anything in ages, and they went in 2014, had the 7th game in their building. So at the end of the day, they've at least got that. So I think if you're a Royals fan, maybe in a weak division,
Got to do something, right? They got Bobby Wood Jr. You don't want to waste that kid's career,
Perez,
So
yeah.
you got to do something.
I think they've only got 4 players with an OPS of 120. I think that was their team this year. Only 4 players. Maybe you bring in Lugo. Maybe you fill in some minutes. It's a 3-year deal. At the very least, you get him for 2 because you figure out to trade him next year if you're still not competitive.
The Central, if everything goes right for the Royals, right? If their young kids, all of a sudden start hitting and pitching, and the few guys that they signed, if they do well, you know what? They could sneak and win that division because that division's not that good.
Minnesota would have missed 86, 87 games.
Yeah, I think that's their thinking. Let's sign a couple of guys and let's make a run.
Detroit loses Rodriguez. You can never figure out Detroit.
Yeah.
Chicago, I think, is still a ways to go. Cleveland, I don't really know what to make of Cleveland. They made a few minor moves, but and also Ron wants to. I do want to move to football. Ron, did the Phillies trade Castellanos?
Not yet.
No, I don't
Okay.
think so.
Okay, so I think Ron is speculating there. So let's certainly hope that that doesn't.
That I know of. I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think the thing that I heard was from you most recently was that the Mets were interested in Turner, but anything else when it comes to Castellanos, I mean, I listened to the radio all day today, and I didn't hear anything about that. But maybe we'll have
I
to.
really don't know why they would trade him, honestly.
Pitching? Maybe you need pitching? He says he hopes not. So basically, he's speculating. Okay, thank you, Ron, for the speculating. And the Twins last year won 87 games. Detroit won 78. Cleveland 76. KC and Chicago both lost over 100 games. So obviously they've got work to do. We'll see, though. The Twins, nobody's impressed with them. But, I want to talk some football, obviously. We'll pick a few games. Not going to run through every game. But first of all, I got to talk to you, Justin, because you might know the guy. This Tommy DeVito thing. I looked up at the front page of the Daily News here, and it seems like all of a sudden it's like the New York Giants, can they make the playoffs? There's hope. And, he's got the agent. I mean, can this thing really last, or is Tommy DeVito a flash in the pan here? I mean, the Giants certainly pulled a rabbit out of the hat. And, I mean, maybe you know this guy, maybe you don't, but it seemed like you're from the same town or area of him. But, what do you make of Tommy DeVito right now in the New York Giants, who seem like they've got a second life on their season?
Yeah, first of all, Cedar Grove is no more than 20 minutes from where I grew up.
Yeah.
Don Bosco Prep, no more than 5 minutes from where I went to college. Seems like everybody knows everybody, and and Tommy's out there. He's played some great football. He really has. I'm still not 100% sold whether or not it's sustainable or not, but right now you just got to ride the wave. It's been quite the whirlwind over the last month for Tommy DeVito, right? We get our first look at DeVito, and Dayball doesn't even let him throw in the Jet game. And, it's kind of the same thing happened a couple weeks later when he came in for Jones, when Jones tore his ACL in the Raider game. And then DeVito becomes the starting quarterback, and all of a sudden they got the game plan going. He's making good throws. The only thing I caution is you kind of have to look at who they beat. They beat the Commanders. They beat
our buddy Ron's Packers. They beat
the Packers. They beat the Patriots. So I mean, you kind of take.
And the Patriots game, they hung on for dear life to win.
Yeah, it was a 10-7 game. Kind of take it with a grain of salt. But I also see a kid that's improved week after week. So, I go into this game with New Orleans very, hopeful. And, listen, a local Italian kid from New Jersey, how could you not root for?
If you think about it, you got New Orleans, and I got a bunch of comments. I'm going to get to them. You got New Orleans, and that's actually a game for playoff because you got so many teams at 6 and 7. The Giants and Bears are right there. The Bears you got a log jam, and you got the Rams coming up, right? You got the Rams, I think, the week after, or
New Year's Eve. Yep.
You got them, and then you've got the Eagles twice in between that. So basically, if you get lucky, maybe even if you win out, but you probably could get in, or if you win 3 or 4, you might actually, maybe you could pull this out if luck kind of has its way. I mean, the Giants are alive.
So tough to do, though.
Yeah.
I mean, going into the Superdome, I think this is going to be a real test for DeVito here. I mean, and then you got the Eagles.
Giants defense has been good. I agree with you that the offense has not been what it was, but I think the Giants story has been different than the Jets story this year because the Giant defense, for the most part, I think for a couple of game exceptions, has still been pretty good. And if we look at the Jet and Bills games, for example, if those games, the Giants basically gave those games up, the Giants are 7-6 right now, and they're kind of where they were last year. And everybody would say, everything's all fine with them. And that's really the difference in this season. The Jet game, the way they lost that, basically gave that up. And then the Buffalo game where they really should have had more points in the first half. Then the second half, they had the last drive of the game and couldn't get any points. I mean, that's the season right there for this team.
I think this season comes down to this week because the Saints are a team that they have to jump, right?
And they got the Rams still left.
Right,
so if you
and the Rams.
The Rams are 6-7. And a good chance for the Rams to get to 7-7 with Washington on the schedule this week. I mean, listen, it's gonna be
And the Rams gave away a game last week because they should have won also themselves. They went into Baltimore and
they
played a phenomenal game.
They played a hell of a game and just couldn't pull it off.
Well, the NFL got what they wanted this year with this extra wild card because pretty much even the Bears are alive. The Bears beat our Lions, and they've I think
the Bears are playing with juice, man. The Bears are playing with some juice.
I think the only teams really out of it in the NFC, I think, would be Arizona, Carolina.
The Panthers. That's about it.
Yeah, that's it. Everybody else is alive. And let me get to a bunch of comments here. I want to say hello to my buddy Rich out there. Rich is listening out there out in Brooklyn, and he is really enjoying us for the first time. Thank you, Rich. I'm getting that message. I want to also say hello to Mr. John Gonzalez. Where is the Brute Force Bad Whites? The brute force, Brad Weiss, love the brute force, but he is like on a milk carton because he's coaching high school basketball. So obviously he's kind of doing his own thing. So we hope he's back, but he probably doesn't have a voice and he's doing his own thing. So he's been kind of, MIA, but definitely we wish him well. And also Tyan Wallace, TBK, resident Baltimore guy, haunts the Rams. Yes, but the Ravens, certainly they got a big win. Obviously they're pushed for home field, but the Rams, we'll see what happens with them and the Giants. Obviously, thank you for tuning in. We hope you're well. Also, let me get here to Carlos Chavez. I'll read your comment, but I won't comment on baseball. The Mets bring in Turner. Sounds like old Mets making moves. Well, I mean, look, they Met fans will like that move.
I
it's
like
a good move.
Yeah, I would like it for the Mets.
Stay young and keep the course. The DeVito thing is aging. I think that's the most hilarious point of the whole story there. But he's a Packers fan. The Packers, that's a game that they came back and should have had. I agree with you on that. I want to say hello to my buddy Lee Walker out there. Lee Walker is important because Lee actually hosts, I think, the #1 rated Apple podcast out there. And he's on Instagram at its_just_Walker. He is also somebody who was on MTV True Life. We're trying to get him onto Sportswire Radio. So I hope, Lee, you like what you see from me. I was speaking with Lee for a brief few minutes before we went on the air for my second stint. So, Lee, please get in touch with me further, and thank you for tuning in. This DeVito thing is basically the best thing. Wink with the defense, and the Giants need to keep getting better. Yeah, the Giants, I mean, they're going to see. You're going to definitely see here. And also, DeVito reminds me of Jeremy Lin. I guess Linsanity, I mean, yeah, you know what? The Giants kind of, in a way, it kind of made their season a little bit more interesting and a little more exciting. So, you know what? That's what the NFL wanted. And can DeVito be the guy to carry the offense? They scored 21-plus points, and that's on Dable and their offensive coordinator. Yeah, the Giants, and I think that's kind of what we were talking about. If you look at the Giants' season, their 2 games, if they miss the playoffs, it's going to be what happened in the Bills game and what happened in the Jets game.
Yep.
Because those were the 2 games you basically won, and you gave them up.
Yep.
You're 7-6 right now. You're in a playoff spot comfortably. So that's going to be their season.
They really haven't gotten blown out, other than the Cowboy games.
The Cowboy
Giants
game
have
week
played
1.
close game.
The 49ers, they got steamrolled.
The Thursday night game. Yeah, that game got out of hand in the third quarter.
Seattle, they got beat badly.
But other than and the Raiders game, Raiders blew them out.
Yeah.
Raiders blew them out. Who of all people, the Raiders, right? Funny joke, go from no points
30-6, yeah,
to 63 points.
And I think the Seahawks won like 27-3.
Something like that, right? That was the game in Seattle, if I'm not mistaken, right?
No, it was on Monday night.
Oh, Monday night. That was last year.
That was 24-3.
Okay, 24.
San Fran was only 30-12.
Yeah, but the game got out of hand late in the third quarter.
But yeah.
I mean, I guess they were in it. The Raiders game, they were definitely. I think that was a blowout. And the Raiders again. I will get to all the comments here in a second. But the Raiders scored 0 points last week and 63 points this week. I mean, you can't make some of that stuff up. And I want to thank Rich in Kew Gardens for tuning in. So, Rich, if you're in Kew Gardens, check us out anytime. We're on sportswireradio.org. We're also on YouTube. So if you're a big sports fan, Rich, Friday nights we talk the NFL, Major League Baseball, anything you want to share, Rich, definitely check us out. And let me get to some more comments. And thank you, Rich, for tuning in here. Jones is trash, but DeVito is not the long-term answer. Got to draft a QB. It's a huge QB-laden draft class. Hopefully they land it. But let me ask you this, though. The Giants, let's say even they win 2 of these next 4 games, they're not going to have a high draft pick, though.
No, they're not. They're essentially playing their way out of a top pick.
They're going to.
I don't know, but let's be honest. Are they going to really win 2 more games?
They could. You got this. The Rams is winnable. They could beat the Rams.
I don't know. Rams are playing good right now.
Rams are good.
Giants beat the Packers, though. I mean, they beat the Packers. Packers were playing great football in their own right. They beat the Chiefs on Sunday night. They beat them.
Daniel Jones is coming back.
I know it's on the road. I know it's on the road, but I still trust Matthew Stafford at MetLife more than I did with Jordan Love.
I'm not saying the Giants definitely win 2 or 3 of these next 4, but I think they have a chance at 2 of the 4. Remember, the Eagles game may not mean anything. That last game.
Yeah, I do certainly think the Giants will have a chance in Week 18 against the Eagles. In terms of Christmas Day against the Eagles,
no way. I agree with you on that.
I think that you're We're going to
No
have
way.
a bloodbath there because the Eagles still fighting for that number 1 seed.
Absolutely. And they may
Also knowing that
reclaim
they
that.
lost the
went out.
tiebreaker to San Fran.
They win.
And I feel the Eagles may reclaim that spot this week because the Dallas goes into Buffalo, and I'm not convinced Dallas. I'll get to
And
that.
I think they were saying it last week. If Philly wins out, regardless of what the Cowboys
they
do,
touch the number 1 seed.
yeah. So,
Well, no. Wouldn't San Francisco get the number 1 seed?
oh no, I'm talking about the division. At least.
Oh, just the division. Yeah.
All right. Well, I got a lot of comments here, so I'm going to read them off here. So people seem to be tuned back into Sportswire on these shows. So I appreciate that. Lions are overrated, and Goff is.
Well, their
proof
defense is overrated. Their
Yeah, well,
defense
he's-
is
well,
not
well,
good.
well, his
Goff's a
comment-
turnover
I'll
machine,
read
man.
his
He's been
comment,
bad
though.
lately.
Listen, his comment is this: Lions are overrated. Goff is proof is serviceable and not good enough to carry a team. I mean, that's a partially
I
fair
agree.
statement.
No, I 100% agree with that because Jared Goff has been an absolute turnover machine of late, and the defense is just not that good.
I think to really sleepwalk through the Chargers game, the Bears game, the Packers game on Thanksgiving.
Guess
Yeah, I
what?
mean, I'm a big
Guess what? It's
Lions
not
guy,
getting
but I'm
any
worried
easier
about.
tomorrow night. It's not getting any easier tomorrow night with Denver coming
Oh,
in
I
there.
think Denver right now.
Denver's playing
Denver
good.
right
How
now,
about Denver?
they're firing on all cylinders.
Denver
Russell Wilson's
could-
playing well, and the defense is on fire.
And here's another thing.
Denver could win the AFC West. They could win the West.
And here's another thing to add with the Lions with Goff. Goff is a free agent after next season. How many times do you see a franchise quarterback go into his final season without a deal?
Well, I'll tell you what. If the Lions limp into the postseason and get bounced in the first round,
They might trade him.
well, I
Right.
mean, you might look at it and say the second
Didn't
half.
they
the
draft
Lions-
Hooker? That guy, Hendon Hooker,
Hendon
right?
Hooker, yeah, I think they just like activated his practice window because he got obviously had that bad injury. It was, and I think it was like either in bowl season or like really late in the college football season. So he's basically not been healthy all year long. I don't know what they think of Hendon Hooker. I know they spent like a 3rd or 4th rounder on him, but the most likely answer is that the quarterback is not on the roster right now. The future quarterback's not on the roster.
Well, I'll tell you what. The Lions.
They might have to go. They might have to go veteran bridge because they're 9. They're 9-4.
If they go, God forbid, they go 10-7 and limp into the playoffs and get bounced in the first round. I mean, you're definitely going to hear that this team could certainly make some moves there. And again, for Rich and Kew Gardens Hills, we're actually on Friday nights for the regular sports shows. 10:30 next Friday we'll be on. We'll have Randy Dillon on to do some wrestling to open. Then we'll have the guys on and we'll do some NFL talk. Rob Maraska, I think, might join us, but so it'll be myself, Justin, and Chris usually. And thank you, Rich, for all you do. Again, Rich and Kew Gardens Hills, really looking forward to hearing more of you. I got a lot more comments. Let me get them up here. Well, we'll see about that. We've got a lot of football left to play, John, so stay tuned for that. No, don't draft a quarterback when it comes to the Giants. Jets and Giants, sell the picks and build the depth. You're killing your teams reaching for a QB. Well, the Jet situation, we've spoke about beating like a dead horse.
Yeah.
Anthony Finkel is probably high as a kite right now, probably somewhere in the state of Florida, so that's what you're asking about him. Look, I love Anthony Finkel, but he's probably high as a kite right now. I mean, which is good. Listen, we were talking about Liv Morgan who got arrested for it, and I was actually defending Liv Morgan for it. So, I mean, I'm not saying anything bad about it. That's just probably what he's up to right now. He's just, he's a casual fan, which is great, but that's what his situation is. Lions are not overrated. The Eagles are the most overrated team in the NFL.
They're in the slump. They're definitely not playing well, but I think they'll bounce back.
Well, I tell you what, I got right now. I would say Miami might be the most overrated one after what I
They
saw.
haven't beaten. I said it in our chat. They have not beaten a good team yet.
You can't blow a 14-point lead against a garbage Titans team at home with 4 minutes left. I mean, that's embarrassing. That to me,
they have not beaten a good team this year.
No, they haven't. I do want to give Tennessee their due here. I do like the moxie that Will Levis has. I think he might be a guy that has an it factor.
I think it was one of our old shows that said this to me, and it was Chris Belcher. He said Frank Wycheck, he might be the best. Their coach. I'm sorry, the Frank Wycheck. Their head coach there might be the best coach. Grable might be the best coach in the league.
Tennessee and their head coach just proves it that coaching is so important in the NFL.
Yep.
right? Because Tennessee, on paper, do they have really that good of a team? No.
No,
But
they're not.
I would
every
even
week,
argue.
they're gonna fight you.
I would even argue real quick. We'll pick a couple games in a second, but I mean, listen, Peyton, right, was 1-5, and he got Denver to 7-6. I mean, isn't that coaching a difference there? I mean, that Denver
100%.
team
100%.
last year would have folded like a cheap suit, and he got that team all the way back now, and they could win the AFC West. What a story that would be! 1-5. I mean,
Yep.
Kansas City seems like they're in a lot of trouble right now. I mean, so. You know, if they now obviously they have a lot of football left, and also John Gonzalez says Joey Bostrom. I don't know what about Joey Bostrom. Joey Bostrom, he's on a milk carton somewhere. Poor Joey Bostrom, but that's a different conversation. DeVito is a fun story, but he isn't a top flight QB. Yeah, I think that it's a matter of like what this team does the next 4 games and where they end up. I think we're all in agreement. I don't think he's an elite NFL quarterback. It's a fun, nice story, you know.
Yeah, it's a great story. I mean, it would make it interesting if he runs off, 4 more wins in a row and he plays great. Yeah, then there's something to talk about. But let's wait to see.
Yeah, you
how
see
the
these
rest of the year goes.
occasionally. I mean, Kent Graham one year won like 4 games in a row for the Giants. They got to 8-8. Ray Lucas 99. The Jets won a bunch of games late and just missed the playoffs. I mean, you see these stories from time to time in the NFL. I don't know where Tommy DeVito ranks in kind of lore. I mean, if the Giants certainly somehow go like even 8-9, I'm sure that people are going to really clamor for him to get the job. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that on Sportswire. Don't sign Goff to save your team. Yeah, well, if they struggle down the stretch here, Titans are trash. Yeah, I mean, I think the fact they've got 5 wins tells you that their coach Vrabel's done a great job. No, there are a lot of teams that stink right now. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of teams in the league. Listen, the league's play. We talked about the quarterback play is not. Yeah, I think that's what I got confused with about Frank Wycheck. My condolences absolutely to him on that. Thank you, John, for reminding me. If you're out there, also, John is the head of the Sports Authorities Group, which Chris is a moderator of. I'm a moderator of. Anthony Finkel is a moderator of. A couple of other guys here on Sportswire are moderators of. If you want to join that group, please join it on Facebook. There's over 4,100 members and counting. There's professional athletes. There's sport agents on there. There's professional people from all backgrounds, all walks of life. It is definitely a great place to join. So if you are out there, if you're rich in Kew Gardens Hills, you're on Facebook, go out and join the Sports Authorities Group and support the movement. John has done a phenomenal job. I think I've been a member of the group now for like 3 or 4 years, and I think Chris and I have been moderators for that long. So it's a great group. John has always supported us, and KC will bounce back. And who's Carlos's favorite team? I think Carlos is a Bills fan, but Carlos can answer that. But obviously, let's pick a couple games here. I'm not going to go pick all the games, so let's pick a couple of games for fun. And I think, Justin, you said it. Detroit and Denver tomorrow night, 8:15. And Detroit is at home, but they're 5.5-point favorites here. And if I didn't have my pom-poms, I would have told you I picked, but I obviously keep up with my pom-poms. But, it's a really intriguing matchup because Denver could, if all the blocks kind of fall into place, could actually win this AFC West because they have a win over the Chiefs. And I think Detroit will make the playoffs, but it's definitely they're limping into this. So, what do you think here is Detroit is at home, though? It's 8:15, but they're 5.5-point favorites against Denver. And I think a lot of people are going to pick differently than I pick on this. But what do you think?
Well, I think this actually is the beginning of the downfall of the Lions. Obviously it started with the last week's lackadaisical loss to the Chicago Bears. I could honestly see this team go from 9-3 to 9-8. I mean, just like that. I mean, you think about their upcoming schedule. They play the Vikings next week. They get the Cowboys after that, and they finish with the Vikings. And the Vikings, they're dealing with quarterback issues because of the loss of Kirk Cousins, and now they're going to go with Nick Mullins at quarterback. But I think with Nick Mullins at quarterback, you finally bring back a guy that fits the Kevin O'Connell offensive scheme. So I think you're going to see a lot of, a lot of Justin Jefferson tomorrow, a lot of TJ Hawkinson. And I think, looking ahead for the Lions, I think that presents a problem to them, especially how weak they are defensively. What presents a problem to them in this game is I don't think that they're going to have an answer for Russell Wilson. I mean, Cortland Sutton has been playing absolutely out of his mind lately. And the running game with Javonte Williams, Denver has gotten it clicking on all cylinders. And guess what? Their defense, which was really good last year, despite how bad they were, is good again.
I think we even
And-
said last year at one
and
point
they're-
they were in the top 5 in the league. I think
They
this year they
were.
pretty much played better than
They
that. I
couldn't
think.
score any points. Their offense was bad. Russell Wilson had a terrible year, and now Russell Wilson's bounced back, and the defense is good again, and they really have it all working for them right now. I don't know if I'll go as far as say as they'll win the West, but they're certainly a playoff team, and certainly
They're in that discussion.
they're in that
quandary
conversation at 7-6, and well deserved. And I'm going to take the Broncos here with that 5.5, and I actually think the Broncos are going to win this game.
I was surprised that the spread actually went up. I was kind of perplexed at that, the way Denver played and Detroit played.
I just don't trust the Lions either.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to feel that way, and I have a ton of comments on it. I'm going to get to everybody, TBK, Carlos, Ron, just hang on tight for a second, John Gonzalez. But, Chris, it is interesting because our Lions have been our team on Sportswire for a while, but they're definitely limping in to the playoffs. Still, even if they lose out, they'll probably get in. But I have a feeling that this is going to be like a 10-7 football team here, and they're going to really, again, have no momentum. Maybe they'll hang on and narrowly win this division. But definitely, this is the kind of game here that a lot of people, I think, are going to be really picking the Denver Broncos for good reasons. They've won 6 of their last 7 games. But what do you think here? It's 8:15. We get those Saturday night games coming up, and Detroit is oddly enough 5.5-point favorites here at home.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I was surprised that the line actually went up. I thought it was going to go under 3 points.
It went from 4 to 5.5.
Yeah, instead of going up, but it went up. I mean, it's ridiculous, and I mean, I'm going to take Denver too, getting the 5.5. I don't know if they're going to win the game, so I might disagree a little bit there with Justin, but I definitely am going to take Denver with the 5.5. Maybe it's a field goal game by the end of it, and Detroit pulls it out, but yeah, it's going to be a close game. I'm taking Denver with the points for sure.
All right, let me get to a bunch of comments before I give you my obvious pick. He gives you the hearts. Okay, he's a Packers fan. Thank you for that. We knew that already. TBK wants to say, sorry, John, this is the most beatable the Chiefs have ever been in quite a while. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to agree with TBK on that. I mean, they've got no wide receivers right now. Yep. They've lost some, very tough, heartbreaking games, Green Bay, Buffalo, and this team, even when they won, really hasn't looked that impressive. And I don't know if it's nice to see them humble. I don't know if I'm going to go that far. I don't really have an allegiance toward the Chiefs or not. I mean, there are going to be people that hate them because of the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce thing, but there's no question that the Chiefs are definitely on the ropes. That I definitely agree with.
Now they're dealing with the Isaiah Pacheco injury too.
We talked about that with Chris last week on the show. Carlos says, I'm a New York City Bills fan. Yeah, there was always pockets of them. When I was growing up, I remember even in Brooklyn, there was a kid that now is actually he's the commanding officer of the 61st Precinct. I used to hate this kid's guts, by the way. So if I ever see him again, I still don't like you. But he is he was a Buffalo Bills fan. So he says his third team is the Titans, which I appreciate that. But also TBK, watch those Jaguars. They're sneaky, but they're another team I'm trying to figure out also.
Yeah.
That Vikings defense is getting better. Ron, we'll see how healthy Trevor Lawrence is. I agree with you on that. If he isn't playing at 100%, we're going to definitely pick that game in a minute. John says it comes down to Philadelphia and San Francisco with Dallas an outside chance. Yes, agree with that. KC needs to bag that offensive coach. Move on from Matt Nagy. Yeah, we're going to certainly talk about that, I'm sure. Yeah, and I still love my Lions. The Brute Force, I think he loves the Lions, but the Brute Force is another guy right now that he is on a milk carton right now on Sportswire. He has been I guess he's forgotten to pick up his telephone or forgot to message, but that's cool. We're going to let that slide for now. But I am picking the Lions because I always pick the Lions. I mean, I kind of think maybe the fourth quarter they'll find a way to pull one out. I mean, this would probably be my only summary here. The home crowd, Saturday night, prime time, bounce back. You want to certainly prove the last time you played on prime time. You certainly laid an egg the Thanksgiving game. So maybe that's my thinking here if there's going to be a bounce back here. So as I pick Detroit, but I'm definitely not very confident about Detroit in this one for the first time. And certainly I think Justin said this is definitely a must-win when it comes to the Detroit Lions here against the Denver Broncos. But it's a must-win for both teams because obviously Denver is very much in the thick of that AFC playoff picture. So let's go another matchup here. But obviously, because TBK mentioned, and obviously in the interest of time, the Sunday night game, Baltimore and Jacksonville. Just another team, Jacksonville in a way, kind of like Detroit. I mean, Jacksonville, I think, will make the playoffs just because, again, where they're, how many wins they have and where they are. But, last year was kind of the opposite. Jacksonville came on strong and certainly took that AFC South. But now I'm not quite sure. Obviously, Baltimore, you certainly feel good about them. Really wasn't an impressive win, though, against the Rams. But, hey, wins a win in this thing, and the Rams were actually playing good football here. And I guess, again, it's Baltimore in Jacksonville. They're 3.5-point favorites here on the road, 820. I think a lot of people are going to have to, I think, if they're picking this game, if you're in like a competitive league, you're probably going to be like damned if you do, damned if you don't because of the spread and the way both teams have played lately against the spread. But what do you think here in this matchup? Baltimore 3.5-point favorites Sunday night, 820 against Jacksonville.
Yeah, I don't know how healthy Trevor Lawrence is. He didn't look too comfortable in that game on Sunday. Obviously coming off the injury against the Bengals on Monday night, and they're teetering with danger right now because the Colts are 7-6.
Yep.
Yeah, the Jaguars are teetering with a little bit of danger here.
I think they'll get in, but I'm not convinced. Even if
I'm not so certain because the Colts are playing good football, and the Texans have played good football too because they got the 2 7-6 teams behind the Jaguars. Missing Christian Kirk, I think, is a big deal. Obviously you still have Calvin Ridley there, Zay Jones, and Evan Ingram's, appeared as a big target. But their offense has just gone through so many ebbs and flows of inconsistency all year long, and I don't know that anything really changes in this matchup. And the Ravens have been one of the smoother operating offenses all season long. You could argue Lamar Jackson's back in the MVP race, just like he was in 2019. Not sure he's the favorite, but you could definitely say Jackson's in the MVP case. And I just like the Ravens. They're a better football team. They're well equipped, with their running, with Keaton Mitchell, Gus Edwards, Odell Beckham. It looks like he's resurging, and the emergence of the rookie Zay Flowers. They have it all go for them right now. So I like the Ravens.
What do you think here, Chris? Obviously, Ravens pull out a big win. Jacksonville definitely kind of sputtering, and maybe they haven't built as much capital as the Lions, but they have been mostly in first place this year. Still is a must-win for both teams, obviously, because of playoff position. Baltimore would definitely love home field. Jacksonville definitely wants to hang on for dear life in the AFC South because you do not want to be in that cluster of teams. But it's Baltimore here, who is a 3.5-point favorite, 8:20 p.m. game, Sunday night. What do you think?
Yeah, you know what? Jacksonville's struggling these last couple of weeks. And like Justin said, if Lawrence is not 100%, this is I don't know. They're just not playing well right now, defensively either. And for me, Baltimore is the class of the AFC right now. I don't think any team is better than them in the NFC at this point. So I like Baltimore right now, even if it's 3.5. I was kind of hoping it would go under 3, but even at 3.5, I'll take Baltimore to win this game pretty easily because Jacksonville is not playing well, and Jacksonville may not even make the playoffs because. Like you mentioned, you got the Texans and you got the Colts right there.
Then you got those cluster of 7-6 teams elsewhere. You got Denver. You got Pittsburgh.
They can't lose many more games, Jacksonville, or else they might get out of the playoffs.
Yeah, you know what? Part of me thinks 10-7 might be over the only safe way you make the playoffs in the AFC. I think in the NFC, you're probably going to get 8.
Yeah.
9, you make it. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, we'll see. I got a ton of comments here. Let me try to read it. I got some even new people coming in. So I like the new people coming in here. John says, listen, I picked against KC in the Super Bowl last year. I learned my lesson. You don't count out Patrick Mahomes. My buddy Craven Rage, the ruler of the yard, are going to be wrestling tomorrow. By the way, good luck to you, Craven Rage, in the IMF Winter Clash against the resident rock star Sean Jovi for that WC Interstate Openweight Championship. I'm going to be seeing Craven Rage Monday night with Kodak Kid, his arch nemesis. I'm picking the Lions because I hope they can hold off because he's in Wisconsin, by the way. So, like, for him, he doesn't want the Packers to make the playoffs because he is in Wisconsin. So he's going to have to deal with all that stuff there. So he's hoping that Detroit hangs on. I think that the Packers won't win the NFC North to leave about the Vikings because those teams play twice, but I understand your point, and I'm with you. John Gonzalez wants to say, sorry, TBK, but the Ravens have a bad track record in the playoffs. Lamar never comes up big. I would certainly say from TBK, it was an impressive win. They have come from behind wins. To win with a backup kicker, it's in spectacular fashion. Come on. Yeah, I mean, they won. Listen, nobody's denying them to win, but, I think there's going to be people still skeptical. That's going to be the point. And this is a funny one. Panthers are going to win the Super Bowl this year. Well, aren't they eliminated now?
This year? Yeah, this year. I don't know about this year.
Well, they can't win anything, right? Because they don't even get the draft pick this year, right?
Right. They're really bad.
So they're really not winning anything this year. So, I guess thank you for tuning in, Tabito. I hope you stay with us, but I mean, I can't really comment on that. Let's see whom takes the Chargers job. Well, we know Belichick, right, is parting ways with Kraft. So is that?
So it sounds like
one? I mean, that would be the most obvious one.
It makes too much sense for Belichick not to take it because what other job would Belichick want? Because he doesn't want to start over and rebuild and all that. He's got a franchise quarterback there waiting for him.
They fired the GM too.
Well,
right.
Would if Buffalo misses, would McDermott be on the hot seat?
Yeah, I would think.
Well,
so.
McDermott should be gone for other reasons, but
I know that. Well, they didn't. The players defended him, I suppose. But
that was from like 3 years ago too. That comment that he made. That wasn't even this year.
But I would just think off the field. I would just think off the field. I know Buffalo's got momentum right now, but if Buffalo missed the playoffs, Belichick Buffalo, I think that would actually be. He might want to take.
I don't see him going to a division rival.
Yeah,
I don't think Kraft would be happy about it either. Because remember, Kraft's gonna have to trade him and get compensation back.
True.
So I just can't see him wanting to have Bill go to Buffalo.
Right, but I think the Chargers make sense. The Bears, for anybody, Bears have a lot of momentum. Maybe he can come back quick in the North.
I gotta be quite honest. I'm not so sure Eberflus is gone.
Right, he's got them playing well. Why would they get rid of him?
I'm not so sure
because it's Bill Belichick.
Right?
I suppose it's Bill Belichick. I don't know.
But see,
you remember Belichick was giving him everything.
You got to get rid of the GM too.
Right, that's the thing with Belichick.
I agree with you though that Staley's done, and there's the Raiders out there.
Bill in Vegas again, another job where the GM was fired as well. I personally would advocate for bringing Antonio Pierce in full time.
Yeah, I think was he 3-3 on the job? Yeah, I think he's done okay. I think the players like him. I would give him a shot. But the Raiders, we go through this every year with them. They do not.
They don't know what
yeah. Kirk is out missing 150 yards of receiving every big game, big misses for Jags, and Peterson's passive-aggressive calls. That kid kicking for the Cowboys is quite a weapon to have, and recently he played in the USFL.
Yes, Brandon Aubrey.
Mm-hmm.
For John Gonzalez, Lamar has never had the weapons he has now had right now, currently. He has showed poise and comfortability in his wide receivers this year in spite of the Andrews loss. And remember, any given Sunday. Also, I got here Craven Rage. Craven Rage is always out here hating Ron. You know this because you're in all my wrestling shows. You know that's how it goes. Baltimore will crash in the playoffs. Lamar is terrible in the playoffs. That's going to be the knock on them. Listen,
we love you, but
it's Baltimore. We're going to see. I mean,
you know what? Him and Prescott, right? They're both playing their best ball.
Good point. Those both guys,
have a lot to prove in the playoffs.
We'll see. Maybe this is the year. We'll have to find out. They're both going to be in the playoffs. The Lions suck. Well, we'll see. Chargers owner is not a good fit for Bill.
That part is true. I agree. But he might be getting desperate and say, you know what? Let me bring this guy in and just let him do his thing, and just kind of leave him alone.
I think Buffalo would be so fascinating to me with Belichick. I just think with Buffalo,
I don't know if he'd go though.
That's if Buffalo misses it, which is, to be determined. I think that would be so fascinating with Buffalo. I mean, that would really, to me, the one that would kind of stand out of a winning situation. I think somebody was talking about, maybe Todd Bowles was on the hot seat, but Tampa Bay now could make the playoffs, and they're in first place, I think, in the South now. So I think that's kind of
I don't think Bowles is really going to go anywhere.
In their schedule, they could still win the South at 8 and 9.
Tampa playing well though, right?
They won a couple in a row. Yeah, Bowles has done okay. I think he'll get another year. Yeah, Eberle might be back. And real quick, I'm actually going to pick the Baltimore Ravens here because I do agree with a number of people. I do not trust Jacksonville in this spot. We don't know about Lawrence. I do agree with TBK on that. I do not agree with him. I do agree with him that Trevor Lawrence, I don't know what we're getting from him.
Yeah.
I really don't know what to make there. It's a primetime game. I kind of feel like here Jacksonville has not played well these last 4 or 5 weeks. Baltimore's got something to prove. It's a Sunday night game. And I think here Baltimore is going to find a way to win this game and solidify their position in capturing, especially after the Miami loss, that top seed in the AFC. And the Raiders probably go after Jim Harbaugh. Well, if you believe our buddy Michael Palace, it's the Jets who are going after Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, we're not getting Jim
The
Harbaugh.
Jets aren't getting it.
No,
The Jets are not getting a new coach next year.
Michael Palace has been saying left and right on his podcast.
I would love it, but that ain't happening. Trust me, he's not going to want to come and deal with Woody. So no, definitely not.
Well, we'll see here. Speaking of interesting games, I bring it up here. Let's talk about Buffalo and Dallas. Because speaking of Sean McDermott here, I want to talk about, Buffalo was interesting. A couple of weeks ago, Justin, I was like, well, this Buffalo team, they look like they're going to crap out here and kind of where Kansas City would be. But they've won a couple of games in a row. You got a lot of momentum here now. And you got Dallas. Now, maybe you got Dallas where you want them, Dallas in December. But going into Buffalo, and I would imagine the weather is going to be absolutely horrendous there because here in New York, once again, every Sunday it rains here in New York. I don't know what it is. I mean, it's like torrential rain. It's heavy rain. I don't know what it's been this year, this Sunday altogether in weather. So I'd be really fascinated to see what that's going to play out in Buffalo. We'll get the weather report for you in a second. But Justin Gianelli, the Buffalo Bills have a lot in the line. The Dallas Cowboys have a lot in the line. It's a 425 matchup. Buffalo is 2.5-point favorites. And what do you think here in this matchup, which has a lot in the line?
Oh, one thing I can tell you is the Dallas Cowboys at home are much different than the Dallas Cowboys on the road. They're just not as crisp on the road. And going out into this environment, depending on what the weather's going to be like. Yeah, like you said, the weather's going to be nasty around these parts here. Along the Long Island, New York, New Jersey area, it's gonna be bad. And if it's bad up in Western New York, that spells trouble. And I think this game favors the Bills anyway. Cold weather, December. One of the things I like about Buffalo, what they've done over the last few weeks, is ever since the transition to Joe Brady as offensive coordinator, they've really found a way to establish the run. James Cook has really run the ball extremely well over the last 6 weeks of the season. And I think that's been a huge development in the Buffalo Bills' success. And I think that continues here. I like the Bills in this game. I think this is the game where you're going to see Dak make a few mistakes. I think the Cowboys are going to sputter on offense. And I think their defense is going to give up some big plays as well. I know Steph Diggs' number has been down a little bit since the Brady hire because they've wanted to run the ball more. But I think they'll be able to score quite a few points in this game. And I like the Bills.
And weather report, 87% chance of rain, kickoff, 49. So you're talking about it's going to be miserable conditions there.
Could be awful.
But again, Chris, Buffalo, couple wins in a row, seem like they're back. They have momentum. Certainly playoffs very much in grasp. Dallas, number 1 seed at least, maybe an outside possibility. NFC East certainly is in grip. It's in sight. They have it right now currently, but weather is what it is. Going to be a huge factor. Buffalo 2.5-point favorites, 4:25 p.m. game. What do you think?
Yeah, this is the type of game that Dallas has to assert themselves, right? In these type, in a bad weather game on the road, this is the type of game that they got to assert themselves because this is the type of game that they're going to have to win in the playoffs, which they haven't done in 28 years or whatever it's been, right?
So Dallas has not been in an NFC championship game or a Super Bowl since 1995, and they had 3 playoff wins since then or something like that?
Yeah.
4 playoff wins.
So I think this is the game where if Dallas is going to be for real, if they're going to have any kind of shot at winning a game or 2 or 3 in the playoffs, they're going to have to win this week. So I'm going to say Dallas wins this game. Tight game because of the weather, low scoring, but I'm going to go with Dallas winning it.
All right, let me get to a bunch of comments here. We want Aaron back from Chris. I think he's talking about the Packers. Do the Packers want
You
Aaron
could have him
Rodgers
back, actually.
Well, I suppose.
He ruined it, but
I
why
think,
not?
interesting that John brought up Bill Belichick and the Jets. I just don't see that. I don't.
No shot.
I mean, he was the former coach for the Jets, right? Technically, former head coach.
Yeah, he won't. No way.
That's like Carlos Beltran, former New York Mets manager. It's like Bill Belichick, former New York Jets head coach.
He's the original. He's the original napkin man.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Right.
Yeah, for our buddy Anthony Finkel, certainly. Anthony Finkel, certainly. I actually haven't heard from
Finkel
Anthony
took it
Finkel.
to a whole other level last year.
Finkel, I haven't even heard from Finkel altogether because I do a radio show Wednesday nights and he calls in. He was used to call in. He just kind of like that's how he is. We love Finkel, but that's just how he is here. And Craven Rage coming with the football points. He's a wrestling champion, but also a football picking champion. It's a make or break one for Dallas. John has the Ravens. Yeah, Bears are players. They got the pick. They've got some wins. They got some momentum. And he also points out the Bears will take Marvin Harrison Jr. and Joel with those two top picks. Yeah, I mean, in that division, you're almost like you're fast tracked back to you could win that division all of a sudden. So yeah, it's a great point. Maybe to Justin's point, you're not going to remove the coach there because you're feeling.
It depends on what the organization thinks of Justin Fields. Now, if you are keeping the coach and GM in place, and Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus, I mean, maybe they go into year 4 with Justin Fields and they do take Marvin Harrison. I mean, is this a situation where maybe they trade down from the first overall pick to like number 3 because their own pick keeps getting lower and lower because they've won a few games here.
Because they're going to end up could end up out of the top 10 even.
I don't know about top. They're going to be closer to 10 than the top, like we might have thought. Like there was a point we thought they were going to get the first and second pick.
Good point.
That's how bad they were. But they played better football. Obviously, it almost seems like the Panthers have that number 1 pick on ice.
Yep.
And the Bears are the ones who are going to be celebrating because of it.
And that's why what Carlos really means is Harrison Jr. to the Bears, which was just
you know what? I could see it. I could see a scenario where the Patriots and Bears swap, and the Patriots take the quarterback, and the Bears take the receiver, and the Bears by moving down a couple.
God, do the Patriots need a quarterback? I mean, they were so spoiled with Brady over those years, but boy, do they need a quarterback! Oh my God,
Mac Jones is horrible.
I mean, seriously, I think there's some people that play out in Long Island somewhere and pick up flag football could play better than some of the Patriots quarterbacks.
Yep.
Bears sell the first pick and maybe get some more defense. Craven Rage, the Cheeseheads are taking first place. You got to win out, though, Ron. You got to hope the Lions lose out. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, they need some help.
That loss to the Giants was damaging.
I agree on that. And interesting one we hadn't thought about New Orleans for Bill Belichick.
I don't see them parting with Dennis Allen, honestly.
Yeah,
he's been there for a while now.
But they've been what? What are they going to be? 8-9 this year, something like that. I mean, do you feel like you brought Carr in? Do you feel like that you did enough to keep him? If you thought, I don't know.
That's the other thing.
I think at least for 2024, I think they're going to keep status quo.
But it's an interesting one, though. It's a good one by Craven because you got
to think about where Belichick, the situation that he'd want to come into. He doesn't want to do a rebuild. Does he want to go to the Saints where they got Derek Carr?
Yeah, but you're in a weak division. You could win in that division. You
might be able to win the division, but you're not winning in a playoff game with Derek Carr.
Never, yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what he's thinking that because he's like, I'm only going to somewhere where I could win.
Right, I like the Justin Herbert one though because he's basically he's a really good.
I think that's the best spot for him.
Yeah, we lost you, Justin. But the point is Justin Herbert. I think that's a good one for him. And best player in the draft is Harrison. Yeah, and that's why I think Harrison's going to be the top pick there. So just so I can pick, because I didn't pick, I actually picked the Buffalo Bills here in this matchup because of the weather. I think was my main concern. The weather's supposed to be bad here from days ago, and I really wanted to pick Dallas in this matchup, but that weather bothers me. I mean, how many times does Dak play in 49 degrees and heavy rain? Allen's kind of used to it. Buffalo in that environment, Buffalo's got momentum. I mean, it's one of those damned if you do moments. So, I mean, but I'm going with Buffalo for the sole reason of the weather, the environment, and that's kind of where I go here. I'll go to a couple more games here just for the interest of time. Let's go to Cincinnati and Minnesota real quick. 1 o'clock Saturday game. Obviously, Bengals playing well all of a sudden. They're also alive in that cluster of teams. And Minnesota is hanging on to sole possession of the 6th spot. And what do you think here? Bengals at home, 3.5-point favorites. Both teams desperately need a win.
Yeah, I mean, I like Cincinnati right now. They're playing great with Browning the last couple of weeks. Minnesota, yeah, their defense has been playing better. I just don't trust Mullen at quarterback or whoever else they're going to bring in if they're going to bring back Dobbs. I know Jefferson's supposed to play. I don't know. I'm going to still go with Cincinnati. To me, they're easily the better team. Plus, they're home. I'm surprised it's only 3.5. So
it actually moved down a point. Went from 4.5 to 3.5.
I'm surprised it went down. I like Cincinnati. I guess money's going on Minnesota, but I like Cincy.
Yeah, I picked Cincinnati also because I think Cincinnati played very well the last couple weeks. And when you keep moving quarterbacks around, I just don't know how that works, especially on the road. And give Cincinnati credit. They've kind of hung in there, and they're in that cluster of things. And Justin wants to tell us Wi-Fi went down. Yeah, try to come back on. I'm going to do a couple. I'll do maybe 2 more games, then we'll get to closing thoughts. So definitely, because a lot of people, we have most people commenting on the show here in like ages. So I'll hang out. I'll hang out. I can see Commanders making a move to get Harrison Jr., Bears trade spots and cash. Yeah, we're definitely talking about that. I mean, it's up to the Commanders. After they're another team that's got a lot of questions. Craven Rage likes the Bengals. Well, I'm going to talk about the Jets next. Salah's got to go. He isn't a head coach, good defensive coordinator, but
I don't know
about Aaron Rodgers. I mean,
look what he's had at quarterback. Look what he's got at offensive coordinator. He's had a mess at the offensive line. Look what he's got as his owner. That's kind of pushing the buttons there a little bit.
Yeah, we spoke about this in depth, and obviously I know it's going to be a topic the next several weeks on the show, but yeah, I mean, I think we would sort of agree, but I don't think they're realistically making the move. I mean, Bengals is for John Gonzalez. Justin likes the Vikings. Jefferson has a big day, and Mullen gets comfortable in that system. Also, Commanders are looking at that cap increase. Okay, that's a good point. Good backups there. All right, Justin, good call on that. All right, so, let's go to another game. I got a lot. Actually, I have more people coming in here. So, you know what? Let's go to another interesting matchup, and let's actually do it. Let's do the Dolphins and the Jets. I was actually today, I was having a slice of pizza, Chris. You'll appreciate this. You're a Brooklyn guy like me. I'm having a slice of pizza, and I see one of my friends who's actually, he makes the pizza. He's the manager of the place where I go eat pizza here in Staten Island, Joe and Pat's. His name is Sal, and he listens to our stuff once in a while. He checks me on Instagram, and I said to Sal, hey, Sal, I said, I'm with small talk, and I said, they think the Jets can win this game. After what I saw in Miami and Zach Wilson, he looked at me like 2 heads, and he goes, you're crazy. I'm going to ask you the same question. You'll appreciate it. You're a Brooklyn guy like me, and Jets. Some people are going to pick the Jets here in this matchup. Our buddy Michael Palace was talking maybe Jets, and again he goes all over the place. He's like the stock market. He goes up, he goes down. You've had him on your show, so you know it firsthand. But Miami's 9-point favorites here, and this line moved drastically from 12 to 9 points for the obvious reason. But I'm fascinated because something tells me actually here that people are going to pick the Jets because of that line and maybe because of the fool's gold play of Zach Wilson. And, what do you think here in this match? I'm going to hear what you and Sharman say today because I'm going to play your show before I go back on the air at 10 o'clock. So what do you think here, Jets? 9-point underdogs in Miami. Let's say you.
You know what? Listen, Zach Wilson, he played a good half. Right? He didn't have a good first half. He had a good second half. And we've seen him have a good half, right? The Kansas City game, he looked good for a half.
Philly, he was okay against Philly.
Right. Yeah. So, even that game, it's a little, I'm not going to give him that much credit for. But you know what? With him, you got to see consistency. And we haven't seen that in 3 years, right? We haven't seen him put together back-to-back games. We haven't even seen him put together a full game yet of really good football. We've seen him a half, So I don't know. I took Miami. I think Miami's still going to win. I know Tyreek Hill is out. That's obviously a huge blow for Miami. I think he's so important for them going forward. Obviously, I still don't think Miami's going to beat anybody good. So I think when it comes to the playoffs. I think Miami's going to be one and done, I should say. Yeah, I'm going to still stick with Miami. The whole thing is, I don't trust Zach Wilson enough to pick him again. You know, he had his good half last week. I just don't see him doing it again. Until he does it 2 weeks in a row, yeah, then I'll trust him a little bit more. And that's so important, because what happens if he does play well down the stretch here? Do they go into next season with him as their backup to Aaron Rodgers, or do they trade him?
It's an interesting quandary, right? Because you have Miami, you have New England to end the season. So you got some games, maybe he could actually play well. And then you say, well, you know what? You got Aaron, and maybe he can mold him, and you give him another crack. I suppose. I mean, I certainly suppose, but
right.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Miami will win the AFC East still. I don't think Buffalo will make up the ground. I got a lot of comments, so I knew I was definitely poking the bear here. The Jets, nope, thumbs down. Thank you, Carlos. Craven Rage says, yeah, the Jets beating Miami would be an upset, but Tennessee did it. That was just my point. John likes the Dolphins. Wilson is not consistent, and that's a consistent problem. That's an excellent line there. That's actually rhymes here. TBK makes a rather interesting point, which I think is a good one still. Miami fans can breathe easy, at least for this upcoming week. This is the last easy win. I don't still think it's going to be an easy win, but I think they're going to win the game. I'm just going to be my pick in a second. But yeah, I agree with you, though, that Miami, they're like paper tigers, right? I think that's the main point of your point, TBK, which I agree with you completely. Miami are total paper tigers, and I think that's going to show out in the playoffs. 100% agree. Yep. Zach has got to go. Zach should leave for his own sake. Well, he's not leaving if he's getting paid. Justin's got a good line here, which basically tells you why he's going with Miami to cover. Dolphins win 27-17. Mostert 105 yards, 2 TDs. Wilson plays okay, but not enough to win on the road. I think that's kind of respectable. Zach will go back to being Zach. I actually picked, I don't think the Jets will win, but I picked the Jets to cover because of the 9 points. I think the 9 is kind of high. I don't know what to make of Miami now. I didn't like what I saw from Miami in that fourth quarter. I mean, I don't think the Jets will have enough to win. I agree, because I think that the Jets cannot put together a full 60 minutes of football, but their defense can be competitive enough. I mean, they can be competitive enough to at least make it interesting. So I kind of said, you know what? I think Miami wins 24-17 or 21-14. And I think up until last week, the 1 point, and I think why most people are going to pick Miami. Before last week, as we continue to say throughout the season, the Jets had not had one game this season with 2 touchdowns. That's why most people will probably still go with Miami, because Tennessee's a little bit better offensively. I know it's not saying much, but they're a little bit better than Miami was. And let me go to another. I'll go to 2 more games here. That's all I can really handle at this point. But let's go. Well, I'm going to listen. The people are commenting, and I'll give the people what they want. Chris, because you're an Eagles fan, I got to go pick the Eagles and Seahawks. It's the Monday night game, and Philly is 4-point favorites here on the road. Seattle has definitely done not quite a Texas two-step. Maybe it's more like a mountain drop, a Washington mountain drop, like Mount Everest in terms of their position here. And I think I don't know if they're going to win another game here the rest of the year, but the Eagles definitely need this game. Certainly, they control their own destiny, especially if Dallas loses. But Monday night, Philly on the road, 4-point favorites. What do you think here in this matchup, and what do you see?
Yeah, both teams not playing well, right? Seattle too has not played good this year. They've been up and down. They've had their good spots, but and Philly just last couple of weeks not looked good. Dallas just totally destroyed them this week, and they played horrible on top of that. 3 turnovers, 3 fumbles, not good. Hurts fumbled. But I think this is a game where Philly starts to turn it around. I don't know if they're going to win, or if they win, it's not going to be by a lot. So I'm going to take Seattle getting the points just because I think it's going to be a tight game, and maybe Seattle wins it, but I'm still going to take Seattle with the points. They're playing at home. Philly's got to have, the big, they just got off playing Dallas on the road. Now they're going to go out to Seattle. This is like the end of their really tough, like 6-7 game stretch that they've had. And they know they got the Giants coming up 2 out of the next 3 weeks we mentioned. So I'm going to take Seattle getting the points just because Philly, I think, even if they do play a little better, I just think they're just going to be run down, and they've had a tough stretch. So I'm going to take Seattle getting the point.
Yeah, it's a really, really tough call. Let me get to a couple of people here. Mike White is what John Gonzalez wants to say. Carlos is going on the record. Seattle 27-24. And also Justin he's not able to join us. His Wi-Fi went down. He's going to hang out with us here. We're going to be on for a little while longer, and Justin will be back with us next week. And really, really wish that Justin was here with us to finish the show. But thank you, Justin, for all you do for us anyway. And we'll be back with us next week, but he'll be in the comments. Just saw the brute force. He got food poisoning at the All-American Burger. Well, you know what? Honestly, I mean, I don't want to say that he should get food poisoning. I don't want to wish anybody food poisoning, but he's definitely like on MIA, a milk cart when it comes to Sportzwire. I mean, I get it. You're on coaching, but it doesn't hurt to say, hey, I can't be here, whatever. I got you though, brute. Listen, we love the brute, but definitely, he's on thin ice. Let me just put it to you that way.
But this is his busy time, right? With basketball.
Yeah, but you know what though? It doesn't. You could, you know what? I'm gonna break the fourth wall. You could go out here and say, yeah, I can't make it. Yeah, I'm busy. Yeah, he's got all the time in the world to post Plainview JFK and level up when he's up Kelly Dempsey's butt and Jesse Winder's butt. So the real fact of the matter is, he could certainly say, hey, you know what? I can't be on the show and I can't make the commitment. I think that would be fine. But obviously, he's on Facebook and Instagram, making sure he posts what he's doing. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not trying to be like facetious, love the brute, but you obviously could say, hey, where am I? That's all. Brute spirit, yeah, it's definitely around. We definitely missed the brute, but you could pick up and say, hey, I can't be on here, especially because he's been on the platform for almost 4 years. Just saying. He's going with the Birds. The Eagles win. Seattle slide continues. And that's exactly why I picked the Philadelphia Eagles, because I just can't trust Seattle. I know Seattle played well in Dallas and they could have won that game, but it's hard for me to go out there and pick them just on what I've seen here. I know Philadelphia's been very up and down. They were unimpressive last week, but I think at the end of the day, Philadelphia is a better football team than Seattle, and I think that's why I'm going with Philadelphia here. So obviously, I'll pick two more games here. We'll go one because we always pick them, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Indianapolis Colts. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, speaking of quarterback issues, they got their own problems, Chris. And the Indianapolis Colts, I mean, another one of these cluster teams here is 7-6, and really, I think the loser of this game is pretty much going to say sayonara for the playoffs, especially with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is definitely on a tailspin, to say the least. I say that objectively, it is a 4:30 p.m. game. Indianapolis is 2.5-point favorites. Pretty consistent in where we are between 2.5 and 3. And what do you think here? Colts, Steelers. Colts can also still make their way through the AFC South and get into the postseason. So give me your thoughts here on this matchup.
Oh, yeah. No, Colts have been playing good this year. I'm not saying they're going to beat anybody in the playoffs if they
think them and the Texans have been major surprises.
Yeah, but they are just playing good. They're playing hard every single week. They're almost like the Titans, like every week. They may not be the best team out there, but they're going to give you a game, right? The Steelers, we know, offensively, they are severely challenged. They're as challenged as we are with the Jets, right? Quarterback, whether it's Kenny Pickett or whoever, not good at quarterback. They're not getting anything done offensively. I got to take the Colts here. I thought I was going to take the Steelers, but the last couple of weeks, their offense is just awful. So I'm going to take the Colts here to win a game. It's probably going to be an ugly game because Pittsburgh's defense is what they are. So I'll take the Colts to win.
Look, I'll be honest. I mean, because I always pick them. I pick the Steelers, and I'll get to a bunch of comments here in a second. But there's no question that when you lose at home to back-to-back 10-loss teams, a lot of people are going to call you imposters, frauds. But then again, the Steelers do have some quarterback issues. But then again, Pickett wasn't exactly the second coming of Tom Brady either. But you can't lose to the Cardinals and the Patriots. 10-loss teams at home. You can't do that. You can't.
Time too, right?
Well, the Patriot game was the Thursday night game, so you can't lose those games. There's no question about that. But obviously, that's where most people are going to pick. I mean, obviously, I picked the Steelers, but I think their defense can keep them in it and win it. But definitely, the people are going to be picking the Colts more than likely. Seattle put the 4 yards to the brink. Yes, listen, and they played well against Dallas, but I just it's hard for me when teams lose as many games as Seattle has to take them seriously. TBK says after the big loss in Dallas, dare I say Philly is on the ropes. I'm going to be looking for them to come out in this game absolutely saying, yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I
can see that.
If it was a different team, like if it was the Rams in Philly, I think I'd say the Rams I would pick, but because it's Seattle, I'm just not really comfortable there. Well, Brad Weiss can say Dolan time in his room because he's not on Sportzwire. So there is no Dolan times for sure. I wish there would be Dolan time, John, but that's something you could take up with the brute force Brad Weiss, why he hasn't said anything about being or anything with us, but that's, here nor there. John likes the Steelers probably for the same reasons why I do. Minshew Mania does not end. Colts take down the Steelers. Michael Pittman will have a big game against Pittsburgh secondary. And also Pittsburgh's streak of consecutive winning seasons very well could be in jeopardy if they don't win this game. So, yeah, I mean, listen, there's no question that the Colts, they could legitimately make the playoffs. I mean, most people didn't think that the Colts would be anywhere near, let's say, more than 5 wins this year. So here they are, and all the turmoil they had last year, even the quarterback issues that they've had when they drafted a quarterback, and yet here we are, and they could really win that division. So a lot to talk about here. So obviously, Chris, in the interest of time, I'm going to pick one more game. To me, there's one more game on the schedule that I'd say, it's just we're going to really for interest. I mean, Cleveland and Chicago, yes, but I don't know how much I think people are really intrigued about that matchup. I am going to go pick the New Orleans Saints and the New York Giants for obvious reasons. Obviously, it's a local game, and really, this is the season's on the line probably for both teams. And again, we spoke about Tommy DeVito at the top of the show, and obviously New Orleans has been kind of, I guess it should have been their division this year. It still could be the division this year, but they've been unimpressive. But they are 6-point favorites here. I think a lot of people are going to certainly maybe go one way or another here, but I'd be curious on where you think in this Sunday afternoon matchup, 1:00 game, New Orleans 6-point favorites at home against the New York Football Giants.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this the Saints. Saints, they've been kind of up and down all year. Derek Carr has not played well. And the Giants, we were just talking about, right? Tommy DeVito, he's been on fire. They've got, 3 wins in a row now. Giants defense plays really well. I think this is going to be a tight game, but low scoring. But I still think the Giants are going to pull this one out. I think they can win it. Forget about, covering. They're getting 6 points too, which I think is ridiculous. I think that's too many points.
It actually went up. It went up from 5 to 6.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the Giants here getting the 6.
Yeah, you know what? As crazy as it sounds, and I'll get to TBK in a second on the Steelers, and he makes a really interesting point. I think the Giants are going to win this game outright. I don't know what it is, and it's not because of Tommy DeVito, because he really hasn't done anything that spectacular. But I think the Giants' defense is a good defense. I think they've been, if you look at this, most of the year, again, aside from 3 games, their defense has largely kept them in it. So I kind of think here, for whatever reasons, I think the Giants are going to win this game. And I think that the Giants are going to certainly at least make it an interesting offseason in what they wind up doing with Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito. And it's going to be an interesting season. And over the unfortunate part, they're going to hurt their draft position. But I think
kind of surprised it's that high of a spread, 6 points. I don't think the Saints are that good.
I would have said, if you would have told me 4, I would, or 3.5. I would have bought that, because the Giants have really played not that bad this year. I mean, again, if you win the Buffalo and the Jet games, you're 7-6 with all their problems, and you're talking about the Giants in a different way. I would have thought there was 3.5, 4. I would have picked New Orleans, but it's 6.
Yeah, 6 is a lot.
6 is high. 6 is too high. Giants defense has been good,
especially for a team like the Saints. I mean, they haven't played that good to say, they're a 6-point favorite.
Yeah, I got a bunch of comments here. And have the Giants beaten anyone above 500? They got 2 wins against the Commanders. They've got the Packers win. Who else did they beat? They beat Arizona in Arizona. They did that. And then was it the Texans or the Titans they beat? One of those teams, right? Didn't they beat one of those teams, if I'm not mistaken? They had 5 wins this year.
Sounds about right.
So that's, you're correct, Ron. That's a good point. Regardless, they've not beaten anybody above 500, but New Orleans isn't above 500, so that means they could win this game theoretically.
Right.
Let me let me get to TBK. As I said all year long, Pickett is not Pittsburgh's guy. Once they rectify their QB problem next year, maybe they become the Steelers everyone is used to for now. But they're still 7-6. So again, the NFL has been such a weird season. They could win this game, and then you're looking at it like, I don't know. But I agree with you though, partially that Pickett may not be their answer. I don't know if you've seen enough of a sample, but he's definitely not been that impressive. And Mitchell Trubisky is not the answer either. But that's you're right on that. Giants cover the spread, but the Saints win it on a late field goal. Nothing more than a 2017 type of game. Saints wide receivers are banged up. Olave a question mark. Giants won't stop Kamara. I'll pick it because John mentioned it. Cleveland and the Bears. Last one real quick. Certainly Cleveland's been pretty good. Joe Flacco got this weird contract on performances, and they are 3.5-point favorites here. But Bears got some momentum in Cleveland, though. What do you think here in this matchup? 1:00 Sunday. Browns, Bears. Browns 3.5-point favorites.
Yeah, I like Cleveland in this game. I know the Bears are playing better, but Cleveland's with their defense, that's a dangerous team going into the playoffs. That's not a team I'd want to play in the playoffs, Cleveland, with their defense playing as well as they have played all season. And they could play in, obviously in the bad weather because
they've got some good wins on their resume. You beat San Francisco. I mean, you've got some good wins on your resume. They've been a good football team. I beat Denver a couple weeks ago, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Think about it. They're playing with a third string quarterback who wasn't even on the roster at the beginning of the season, obviously. Backup running backs. And
Jacksonville was the game. Denver was the one they lost. Jacksonville, I stand corrected, was the one they got.
I like Cleveland. And like I said, they're a dangerous team going into the playoffs just because of how good that defense plays and how much they could run the ball. So I like Cleveland.
Yeah, they've got some good wins this year. They got a win against the Ravens. They obviously have a win against Jacksonville recently. The 49ers game, I mean, they beat the Colts on the road. Colts are a 7-6 football team. They've got wins over the Bengals. So if you look at the Browns have been a good football team. I mean, you look at it, I think they're going to probably, if they win this game, I think they'll probably make the playoffs, right? I mean, you look at them at 10 wins. They get to 10 wins. They're going to be an interesting team. I don't know how dangerous they'll be, but they could be a tough out. And then the schedule shows you got the Texans after this, you got the Jets, and you got the Bengals. So, I mean, you could go 10 and maybe get 11 wins. You definitely could get there. And that's kind of also why I wound up picking the Cleveland Browns, because I think Cleveland's defense is better right now. And I think they're at home. And I just think, I don't know. I mean, Chicago's played well. They've definitely been a good story, but I think Cleveland keeps their momentum going. Yes, the Steelers have a win against the Ravens, but the Steelers have had a lot. They beat the Packers as well. Obviously, your Packers. They've got some good wins, but they've also got some duds as well. So Bears keep the mojo going. Bears defense will swarm Flacco, and Fields will create nightmares for the Browns defense. TBK says we beat ourselves, but yes, they did. Yeah, I think TBK is spot on though about that. It was a funny one. That was a good one. Good comment there. And for all intents and purposes, I should be picking against them, but let's go Flacco. Yeah, this Joe Flacco story, I mean, it almost makes you wonder, why didn't the Jets pick him up? And we had that story twice, but I mean, he played good last week. You just never know. This league, listen, we said at TBK all the time, the quarterback play in this league has just been, this season has been so awful, and you never know here at this point. But but he gives it to the Brownies, and we certainly ran the gauntlet. There was some other games we could have picked. Obviously, let us know what you think on that, and we thank everybody for tuning in. We had a lot of comments here. Joe Flacco, I believe, is 39. He's close to 40.
Yeah, he's getting there.
And he probably moves like he's definitely not moving like Jagger, as Adam Levine of Maroon 5 sang. Five Towns College graduate, by the way. We do a lot of Five Towns, and he's a graduate from the program there. But we definitely talked a lot. We had a lot of people tuning in, a lot of people commenting. I'm really so thankful for the people coming back onto the regular sports. I know with the wrestling shows, we've got a lot of fans, and I really appreciate the people coming back here. And we'll be back here 10:30 next Friday. We'll be doing wrestling and regular sports. So if you're, Carlos Chavez, Ron, everybody else, hang out with us. We'll talk more of the games. We'll talk baseball and everything else. So definitely keep up with us. Thank you for your support. We're closing on 500 subscribers on YouTube. We've got now 12 podcasts on the dial. We've got some new stuff coming out there. So really, hang in there. Thank you for your support. And Chris, I'm giving you the floor, giving you some closing thoughts, and anything else you want to plug, share, or say. I'm looking forward to the Liftoff Jets to play later today, and anything else you might want to say, and fire away, my friend.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. Great show. Justin, great show. Monday, I'm not going to have a show on Monday. We're going to do it Tuesday night.
Okay.
I'm going to be out on Monday. So
I'm live anyway a lot this coming week, actually.
Oh,
So
okay.
it doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm live. I'm here every day. I made the joke last night when I inducted Justin Parsley into our Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. I said, I'm literally on every day, even on Christmas. I think I'm scheduled on Sportswire.
Wow.
People want to come on. People want to talk.
Yeah.
You know?
So we'll give you Talking Rivals Tuesday night, and then probably Wednesday night, we'll give you the Liftoff Jets.
Awesome.
Listen, we talked about the Jet game already. I don't know what to tell you about Zach Wilson. Maybe we could see a second game in a row that he plays well. So we'll see. And hopefully free agency picks up, with baseball. Maybe Yamamoto, if he signs somewhere, maybe that'll get the ball rolling, because it's been kind of a boring, other than the Ohtani signing, it's been kind of quiet. And
it's been, I'm hoping, now we're starting to think about it because, spring training is 2 months from now. So, you would think going into Christmas, now Hanukkah's over, going into New Year, we'd have some signings. So hopefully.
Yeah, I think once Yamamoto gets going, once he gets signed, then teams know, okay, I'm out of this. Okay, we gotta get somebody now, right? We gotta get a pitcher. We know what we got, to spend. And so I think once he's signed, whoever he goes, that'll get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I would definitely hope that's the case. Obviously, we'll also talk about the Hall of Fame, ballots. I'll maybe talk about that with you guys when I come on to your show the following week with the Talking Rivals. I'll have an announcement also there for you guys as well.
Looking forward to it. A lot of fun.
Yeah, so I'm excited about coming on because I want to do some of these podcasts on Sportswire, and I'm excited about that. And if you want to follow CP7NY on Threads, X, also Instagram, also the Talking Rivals on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Liftoff Jets as well.
Yep.
Grown Folk 1980 for Sharman. We're going to play the show. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say on that. So all great stuff there. Also, thank you, Ron, for tuning in. I want to say hello to the lovely Zena about Sheepshead Bay, who's with me also. And she says good night to everybody. Thank you for that. Good night to you, Justin, and great show. Yes, it was one of our better ones in a while, and definitely looking forward to resolving those further mishaps. Maybe we'll have TBK back on at some point for the wrestling part. Rob Maraska may be back. We'll see what his health is. And Brute Force Brad Weiss, you're definitely in outer space. And TBK, definitely looking forward to you next week. We'll definitely talk with you then. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. You are voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio. Joining me tonight was Randy Dillon, Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter, Chris Bezay of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals. I'll be back here at 10 o'clock Eastern Time with DVG of DBW to talk all things DBW. Also, I'll be back here at 6 o'clock, Ace Christian, then 8 o'clock with Corey Graves, both of DBW. But until then, if you're on sportswireradio.org, you're going back to your regularly scheduled programming. But until then, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio.